been said that luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. Welcome to the Australian Hunting Backcountry podcast, where we will focus on all things hunting in the backcountry, not just in Australia, but everywhere that backcountry hunting is possible. My name is Tobias, and if you're a hunter with no backpacking experience, or even an expert, I would like you to join me as we explore gear, places, and technologies, hear lived experiences, different perspectives, and share the passion that people have for a hard-earned backpack hunt. I appreciate you being here with me as I try to increase the knowledge that will bring us better luck in the backcountry. Welcome to this episode of Australian Hunting Backcountry. This is a Geardump. Jason from LiquidAntler and I do. We sit down together in the Australian Hunting Backcountry headquarters, also known as my living room, and go through our gear lists and what worked on the trip and what didn't work. During the first part, we didn't realise how long the recording was taking, and both Jason and I had commitments later that day that we had to rush off to. So it does sound a little disjointed as it stops suddenly. The second part of the recording, we were a little bit time poor, so it is a little rushed. But if you have any questions following this, please feel free to reach out to me on email or social media. One thing that I want to start with, though, is a bit of a disclosure and a caveat. Whilst we are talking about particular brands and so forth here, we do recognise that not everybody has the financial capacity to buy the top-end expensive gear, and we don't want to discourage you from going out and giving the backpack hunting a go, thinking that you need to have all this super expensive gear. This is stuff that I've built up over many years, and I started out as well with some of the cheaper gear, different brands, and for whatever reason, I'm not criticising any of the other brands, but I've just settled upon these brands, and I haven't stopped here, by the way. I am going to make some changes. And there's a lot of, nowadays, there's so many good brands out there. And there's been some vast improvements in technology from when I started all of this too. So really, why I might have selected certain brands was simply because that was the only thing available at the time, or the only thing that I could get in Australia. So I just want you to bear that in mind, that we do like these brands, but they're not going to suit everybody, and don't take us as being the experts at all in this, where I'm still learning. Every trip I'm learning, listening to people, talking to other people, I'm still learning, and even just in my conversations with Jason from his experience and the things that he had, I've learned things as well.
Yeah, because our kit was quite different, really, for similar kind of experience and exposure to hunting. I suppose the only thing is, though, be prepared. Backpack hunting conditions can change, so you definitely don't need the most expensive gear, but make sure you have got the correct gear for the environment you're heading to. It could save your life potentially.
Yeah. And everything with the gear too is a compromise. If you want more comfort, your compromise is you're going to need more weight. So you've got to draw your own line in the sand to work out where your comfort level is tolerable to, in terms of how much weight you're going to sacrifice. So
you must have been pretty comfy then at 42 kgs.
37.
Oh, sorry.
37. Come on. I don't think I would have made the walk if I was over 40. But look, in terms of disclosure as well to affiliates and that sort of things too, I personally don't have any affiliates with any of the brands that I've recommended. Through the podcast, I've met people and been offered products and that sort of thing. So I'll at that stage, I didn't have any affiliates with any brands. So all of my choices and discoveries were things that I'd learnt along the way. Just because people are offering me things in the future, though, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to automatically recommend those either.
The same from me. I suppose with me, I'll be up front. Huntec do supply some of my hunting gear. However, saying that, I have used Huntec historically for a long time, and I find it great gear, so that's one disclosure. And I suppose for that trip, I was running lower boots that were supplied by Lower. However, once again, I had previously purchased a pair of Lower Rangers and loved them. So Those are the two main ones I suppose to be up at front about.
Yeah. So they were your the first pair of lower bits you'd purchased yourself.
Correct.
And then the second pair were supplied by them. Had they not supplied them, would you have bought those boots again anyway?
I would have.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like even though we might be supplied the gear, it's something that we would still recommend. So all right, we're now back in Brisbane, Queensland, sitting in my living room. Again, I've got Jason from LiquidAntler here with me. And we're just going to do a bit of a breakdown of the gear that we took and some of the weights and some of the lessons that we've picked up from the gear that we took in. We did disclose our pack weights, but we'll go through those again just to give everybody an idea of the weight that we were carrying, so that I guess we can, in the next trip, aim to lower that weight. That's certainly my goal for the next trip. I was I guess in all fairness, I was carrying in a bit of extra gear just to test some things out. So I had probably two of things that I would normally only carry one, but then sometimes it's good to have two of things that are necessary, because in the backcountry, the old saying goes, one is none, two is one. So things that you rely on that are necessary, that are more than necessary, in fact essential, it's often better to carry two of those, and a little bit of weight penalty is worth security. So Jason, I'll give you the chance to kick off, since you're the guest.
Hey, thanks for that, Tobias. Well, yeah, I suppose it is just a good opportunity to give a rundown. I'm always interested to hear what gear other people are using, other hunters are using. So yeah, hopefully a few of the listeners find this interesting. So I suppose to start off, the weight of my pack at the start of the trip, so at the start of the track, about to head off, was 32.5 kgs. So 32.5 kgs, that was with the rifle and scope attached to the pack at the time. So we have weighed that up this morning, and the rifle and scope was 4 kgs. So that brings my kind of pack weight to a total of 28.5 kgs for the start of our, 5-day trip into the Alpine High Country. So with that, I suppose we'll talk about packs to start off with. And I was running the Tatonka Bison 75 plus 10 pack. So I've used that for quite a few years now, and I did actually just weigh that this morning, and that pack came to a total of 3.2 kgs. So yep, that's my go-to backpacking, my pack I use. But in saying that, which I did bring around this morning, I am going to be trying out the Tatonka modular system, which they have introduced recently. So that's kind of a modular system where you can move the 75 litre or 30 litre pack onto a frame, which I'll try out on my next trip. But yeah, like I said, for this trip I was using the Tatonka Bison. And
I was running the Stone Glacier Guide 7900 on this trip. It is a very big pack. It's the largest pack that Stone Glacier make that has the meat shelf on it. I think they do have a slightly larger one. I think it's an 8000, but that one doesn't have the load shelf. It has an integrated meat compartment in it. We were discussing before when you first got here, the reasoning that I go to a bigger pack rather than a smaller pack. And years ago I used to run the smaller pack under the mindset that if you had less room, then you were going to take less, because the temptation was to fill the void with things that you didn't necessarily need. But what I learned over the years was that you just had to be more disciplined. You had to create a list, and you had to stick to the list. And I've heard John Barklow say, a what if weighs a lot. So the mindset of throwing something in just because, if this happens, then I'll need this, or if this happens, then I'll need that. And really you've got to get in the habit of stripping it right back and thinking, okay, I'm just going to make do. If that breaks, I'm going to make do, or I've got this, or maybe the trip's over. Maybe we've got to hike out to the car and get something, or something like that. So you can't take gear for every possibility, but having said that, I do like the extra space, particularly on cold weather hunts where you have a lot of puffy layers that take up room. And for me as well, I obviously have the podcast gear, and the intention was when I set up the podcast gear that it was going to be completely transportable so that we could do things like this and record a podcast in a remote location. So I've got a hard case there that goes in the bottom of the pack, and that obviously takes up quite a bit of airspace. So the Stone Glacier pack that I was running, we weighed it this morning, and with the hip belts and 2 internal pouches as well, is 3.02 kilos.
So with that, Tobias, what was your actual initial weight when you hit the trail? We can't skip past that.
I was gonna, yeah. Okay, so the initial weight with the rifle attached to the pack and the podcast gear was 37 kilos. I think it was just under 37 kilos, but we'll call it nice around 37 kilos. And normally, like I said, I wouldn't be going in with that much weight. As I said, there was a couple of things I doubled up on just to test a bit of gear, and the podcast gear obviously added a few more kilos. So while we're on that point, I'll disclose the weight of the podcast gear. So in the case with a external battery pack as well, which I need to run this recording gear, it's 3.36 kilos.
Okay.
And the rifle I'm running is a Remington 700. It's been very customized, and it's sitting in a Proof Research carbon fiber stock, and that was, as soon as I can find it on my list, that was 4.2 kilos with a Stealthy Hunter scope cover and 3 rounds of ammunition.
So that gets you down to around that 30 kg mark, I suppose, once you're pretty close to that, just under that 30 kg mark.
Yeah, probably just under 30 kgs with taking into account the podcast gear and the rifle.
Yeah.
So even 30 kgs is probably a little bit heavier than what I'd like. I generally try to be around the 25. Sometimes particularly on colder weather hunts, it's a little bit difficult to get under 25. But I'm sure it's quite possible, but you have to sacrifice a bit of comfort as well to do that. So the other gear that we were, I guess, carrying and wearing would be the next thing to go to.
Yeah, so I'll jump in, I suppose, with a bit of a rundown of what I was wearing as we're hiking in. So first of all, I was running the Lower Ranger GTX boots. So they're the wide kind of version that fits my foot. And this is the first time I've actually weighed these, and they were 1.9 kgs. So I was running the Rangers. As you've probably heard on the previous podcast, I did forget my gaiters. So usually I always run my Morocco 30 snake-proof gaiters in Australia. Unfortunately, I forgot those, and that was a pain, to be honest. Just when you're used to running gaiters and then you forget them, it was just water, snow, everything was ended up inside my boots. So that was definitely a mistake. I won't forget again, so I'll make sure they're packed next time.
I do remember I was walking behind you at one point, and we were going across a bit of ice, and I did notice that your boots were flicking up chunks of ice, and they were falling straight into the top of your opposite boot. And I thought, yep, you're going to have cold feet today and wet socks tonight.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing just how what a difference they make having gaiters. So Ranger boots, no gaiters, and for the socks, I was running the The Kathmandu New Yarn socks. So that was kind of my boot sock combo that I was running for it.
How do you? That's quite a light boot. I was quite surprised at the weight of those. That's for both, isn't it? That's not one.
Correct.
That's for both.
Yeah, I think the weight of them is actually really. They're such a versatile boot. Like I've used them down the South Island in New Zealand, in big country, and I've found them stiff enough for what I need. Still nice and quiet for stalking when I need. So for me, I have tried stiffer boots. I had tried more kind of flexible boots, but for me, I think the Rangers really kind of hit that sweet spot for me, as well as the weight kind of compromise as well.
Mm. Do you have feet that can kind of tolerate any sort of boot?
Yeah, I'm lucky. I can throw my feet into any boot, and I pretty well don't have any issues. Like with these Rangers, I've never had a single blister or anything like that. Yep, they will get sore, as anyone's feet do after a full day smashing around the hills, but I am lucky in that aspect that I can, my feet are relatively tough for wear and tear, and yeah, just one single pair of socks plus any type of boot, and I'm relatively good to go.
You've got lucky feet then. I have unlucky feet. I have spent thousands of dollars on boots over the years, and have hated every set basically I've worn up until I got myself a set of lower Tibets. Now, I will also say that these boots I had done by Lathrop and Sons over in America. They're a company, I think they're a family of podiatrists, and they have their own footbed system. They have a foot mapping system. They send you out this kit, and you stand on it, and it does an incompression, and then you trace around your foot, and you do that a couple of times and send that back to them, and then they have a consultation with you. And anyway, I got to the point, like I said, of desperation. I was sick of getting blisters. I was sick of having pain and all sorts of issues with my feet. And it was to the point that I was, I would come out of a hunt, and I would be almost crippled the next day, limping around. And so I got onto these guys, and they, basically, if you've got any sort of problems with your feet, I would truly recommend getting in touch with them. Reach out to them on social media. They've got a website. So I had these boots done about 4 years ago, and they have this injection molded footbed that it looks really odd, but it actually feels incredibly comfortable. Goes in your boot, and what they actually did was they stretched my right boot for me as well, because apparently my right foot is about half a size wider than my left foot. So I kind of need, what they said was I basically need a size 45 on my left foot and a size 46 on my right foot. But, then you've got to buy 2 pairs of boots, and then you've got mismatched boots. So they stretched this one for me. So I've been really happy with the Loyal Tibets. They're starting to show their age now. This is probably the last year that I'll get out of them, so I might have to contact Lathrop again and talk about getting another set. But those boots there were 2.39 kilos that we weighed, and that's with the footbed in them as well. And it is a dense sort of silicone-y footbed, so it is a little bit heavier than a normal footbed. And I know that sounds like a lot of weight. It's over a kilo on the end of each foot, which, people will say that translates into about 10 kilos at your hips. But the benefit for me of having those, the comfort, the ability to hike all day in them, and after a good night rest, my feet are good to go again. Yeah, I think that's worth the wait.
And how did you find your feet after that? I think we had about a 3-hour walk in on this trip with a 37 kg pack. How did your feet? Of course they're going to be sore or bits and pieces, but no blistering or anything like that.
No blistering. I also run 2 pairs of socks too. So I have the Kathmandu New Yarn socks, and which I think, and I put you onto those because I think value for money, given what they are. Particularly when Kathmandu are always having sales, and it's their own brand, so they'll quite often have up to 40% off. So for $20-something for a pair of socks, I think they're excellent value for money. And I also use Injinjin toe socks, the Coolmax ones. So I use the liner socks to wick the sweat away from my feet out into the outer sock, and then hopefully out of the boot. But they also dry really quickly. So there was a day there where we had wet socks from the rain, and when we were sitting on the hill glassing, I took my boots off and took my Kathmandu, my merino socks off, and just let my feet air out with the Injinjins on, and they dried out very quickly. It was a little bit cold, but having dry socks is really important. So yeah, no blisters, a little bit of pain, which you'd expect from carrying that sort of weight. And other than that, like I said, after a good night's sleep, a couple of Nurofen. The next morning, aches and pains are all gone and good to go again.
Perfect. So I suppose then we'll roll into, I suppose, the clothing we're wearing. So we've got our boots sorted, one of the main kind of crucial bits of kit. So for the walk-in trip, I was running what was I doing? They had the hunting and fishing thermals. So they're just their polyester, well, not polyester, their thermal product they produce, not the merino, but just a cheap version. So I wear their long johns and their long sleeve shirt. I've got that traditional kind of New Zealand style with the long johns, and I was wearing the Huntec rugged shorts, so that's where I wear on the bottoms. And then I was just running a Huntec shingle sweatshirt with the Mansfield Hunting and Fishing Blaze hat and a pair of sunnies. So relatively, it was quite a, warm morning, so it wasn't too bad. So that was the kind of gear that I was running for that walk-in. All up, operated pretty well. The long johns do take a bit of a beating wading through, but that's what I kind of purchased them for. They, every 2 or 3 trips I probably buy a new pair of long johns. So that's what I was wearing for my walk-in.
Yeah, we did discuss the traditional New Zealand hunting garb, and I'm definitely a pants man. That sounds horrible to say it like that. I definitely prefer to wear pants when I'm hunting. I can't do the merino exposed merino base layer. So I had it wasn't a super cold day when we started, and I think we kicked off about 11:30.
Yeah, about midday.
Yeah. So we're right in that warmer part of the day. I had a Kathmandu sleeveless merino shirt on. I just seem to prefer the sleeveless version. I've had other brands of t-shirts, merino t-shirts, and I just find with the merino, the seams tend to be quite bulky, and it becomes annoying under my arms. So I prefer the sleeveless ones. I had the Kuyu Pro pants. I really like those. They've got a bit of insulation to them. They've got the sewn-in knee pads. They dry quickly. They're tough. Yeah, and I like the Kuyu gear. Kuyu gaiters again. A Kuyu Peloton shirt, a lightweight long sleeve shirt, and then I had a midweight Kuyu shirt to go over the top of that, and I sort of took that off and put it on as was needed as it got colder or I warmed up. And also was wearing a set of the fingerless ragwool gloves that I've spoken about before, that I got off Amazon. I liked having those. I find that walking with gloves on, my hands tend to heat up quite a bit, and so then they either sweat or I get annoyed by having the gloves on and take them off, and then my fingers end up getting cold. So by having these fingerless ones on, this is the first time I've tried them out. By having them, I just found that it was a really good balance between keeping some warmth in the main part of my hand, and that was keeping the blood that was sort of flowing out to my fingertips warmer, and I didn't find that I got overly hot and that my fingertips didn't get too cold. So I still had good dexterity there, and still kept them warm and comfortable. When we stopped, I did have some zip-off Kuyu merino long johns to put on. They're really convenient because you don't have to take your pants off. You just drop your gaiters, take your pants down, and you can zip them on or zip them off, and regulate your temperature that way. And then the cap, and I have I think it's a Ridgeline, and it's kind of a synthetic fleecy cap in blaze orange with the black brim. And I like that because it does help to keep your head warm with a little bit of insulation, but it's also blaze orange as well, and it's got a bit of camo pattern in it, so there's a bit of sort of black design there as well. And we did discuss wearing the blaze in Victoria, and our understanding is that it's not compulsory like it is in New South Wales with the G license in this public land there. but we still both thought it was a good idea to at least have a little bit of blaze orange showing.
Yeah, definitely. And I always wear a hat when I'm hunting. I personally find just to reduce that sun glare definitely just improves just my visual kind of just, scanning for deer as we either hiking or hunting. So yeah, I personally always try to run a hat, even if I'm wearing a beanie at times. I'll even have the hat under the beanie just to really reduce that glare from the sun as much as possible.
Mm. One of the things that I've noticed too with the blaze orange caps that I always look for is the underside of the brim being blacked out or a different colour, not blaze orange, because I have seen, I've looked at mates across the other side of a gully, with the blaze orange on, and if the sun's in the right position, that the underside of that brim just reflects down onto their face, and then it just lights it up like a spotlight.
And I've actually used them before, the cheaper versions of the blaze hats with, like I say, with the blaze underneath, and just the glare also from the sun reflecting off the blaze into your eyes is just terrible. It's not workable.
Mm. And I also in these later years have had to wear glasses too, and I find that without that black brim, the glare again comes down onto your glasses, on the inside of your glasses, and it actually kind of throws a light flare onto the inside of your glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Other than those clothes, then what other clothes did you take in with you?
Okay, so just to give you a bit of a breakdown of the other gear that I took in and why. So my main kind of wet weather gear I took was the Huntec Mackenzie anorak. I love this. This is just like a one-piece pullover. It was half zip in the centre with the anorak style. It is a little bit noisier than some of the other hunting rain jackets on the market in regards to if you are pushing through thick vegetation and things. But the thing I love about the Mackenzie anorak is how quickly it dries, and it also doesn't kind of retain the moisture from the rain. Some of them can get very, very heavy, and you pretty much have a water-sodden rain jacket supposedly for the remainder of the trip, while the anorak I'm running seems to stay nice and dry, lightweight, but also keeps that rain out. We did get the rain for one day, and I was nice and dry underneath. No dramas there. They're nicely seam sealed, and I've had no dramas with that rain jacket.
I don't think it is possible to have quiet rain gear that's actually effective.
Correct.
So I think that's kind of not really something that needs to be an expectation when you're buying rain gear, because the primary concern is obviously keeping you dry. And I know what you're saying with that rain gear that stays wet. I remember, I won't mention the brand, but they had a blaze orange rain jacket, which I thought was a good idea, and it was touted as being quiet in inverted commas. But it was, once it got wet, it stayed wet.
Yeah.
And every day I was cold because I had this cold, wet thing wrapped around me,
Yeah.
and with the wind blowing. So I froze on that trip, and when I came home, that was the first thing that I got rid of.
Definitely, I'd recommend, if you are looking for a rain jacket, ignore the silent / fabrics, and definitely focus on something that's going to keep you dry. If you're dry, you're warm, and then you can also pack it away or put it back on you the next day with no dramas. So.
Yeah, there's some brands out there that are advertising breathable rain gear, and I'm yet to find something that is actually really breathable and actually effective as rain gear. So I think with rain gear, it's kind of, you're going to get wet in some form. You're either going to sweat inside it, or it's going to eventually get to a point where it saturates through, because even rain gear, most rain gear has its limit.
It does. With the Huntec anorak, they do have the zips under the armpits, so you can dump heat to an extent. It does help trying to, if you are sweating underneath, then trying to dump a bit of that heat while still keeping you relatively warm and dry. So that was running the Mackenzie anorak, so that just folds up nice and small and packs away into my pack. I always take a down jacket. I would just run a MacPack Halo down jacket. It's around 550 grams in weight. It's a relatively affordable down jacket. They do it on special with the MacPack sales. You can pick it up for between the $100 and $120 range, which I find excellent. Then on top of that, what I try and do is I always have my hunting gear and my night or sleeping gear. So when I'm back at the tent or at the hut, I changed gear. So for this trip, I also had the Huntec trail jacket. This is once again just quite a lightweight polyester jacket, which has been great. A men's Glacier Tech long sleeve top. Once again, it's a lightweight fabric, and I'd put that on underneath my trail jacket when I'm back around the camp. And I always have a change of merino long johns and long sleeve top. Once again, you get back to that tent, you're cold, you're wet, you can change into some warm merino gear with a change of clothes, and it just makes such a difference to be try to keep warm around camp. Additional things I also brought with me were 3 extra pairs of socks. I always like to have spare socks on me. I try to stick with one sock during the hunt. However, if they do get extremely wet, I will change halfway during the trip. But I always have dry socks for sleeping at night. Saying that, I did have issues with keeping my feet warm during this trip. It did get extremely cold, so I will be looking at what options I can for have a bit more or an improvement in the insulated sock, because I was just running the Kathmandu New Yarn socks. I had 3 pairs of those, and then just one woolen sock.
The woolen socks, were they the ones that ended up replacing the gloves?
Correct. We'll get to the gloves shortly, but yes, they came in very handy as a replacement pair of gloves when the gloves weren't really doing what they're supposed to do. And then in addition to that, I also have 2 beanies. I run a First Light Merino, which has like a built-in peak on it, which I find good for, once again, reducing that glare when I need to. And I had a Bush Edge 100% Merino beanie, which was kind of my go-to. That was always on my head during the majority of the trip. Gloves. I've already talked about it, but I'll quickly go through it again. I was running the Bush Edge 100% Merino gloves. They were nice, basic, very affordable. I think about $18, but worked well. Had no dramas with those. But then we get to the sealskin waterproof all-weather sport glove, and that's where I did have a few issues. I talked about it on a previous podcast, but yeah, biggest one there was they say they are 100% waterproof, windproof, and will keep your hands insulated to a certain extent. However, my experience was quite negative. I found them, they just weren't keeping my hands warm enough. Even with my merino ones inside, it felt like once I put those sealskins on, I don't know what was the problem, if they were slightly damp but I ended up getting rid of them for the majority of the trip, and honestly just running some wool socks over my hands at times. So bit of a disappointment really when you pay that money, and I was recommended by quite a few people about those sealskin gloves, but never mind, I'll keep looking and see what else I can find.
Yeah, I've seen other people wearing them on their videos, so it was and sealskin's obviously got a good name, so it was interesting to hear your experience.
Some things work for some people, those just for me didn't personally work, so back to the drawing board, and I've already been looking at different options, so let's see what else I can find.
Yeah.
But yeah, I keep my clothing relatively straightforward. That was pretty much all the gear I took. Overall, I was relatively warm and dry. We were in some pretty tough conditions, but that kind of gear that I just outlined kept me, warm enough to hunt and sleep as well. So I haven't actually I didn't actually weigh all this gear, but yeah, that was kind of a rundown of what I was running.
Other than the sealskin gloves not coming up to spec, what gloves are you looking at?
To be honest, I was just looking at it's just what popped up on my page, but there's some Kathmandu ones that are like a mitten style. The biggest time I find that my hands get cold is when we're glassing. So you're spending those long hours glassing away, and just doing a bit of research, the mittens are definitely the way to try and improve the insulation of your hands. So I may look at a mitten style. Still run my merino wool ones for general hiking and bits and pieces, but it's more when you're stationary at that spot glassing for hours that you want to try and keep those hands as warm. So I think I'll go for a bit of a mitten style.
Yeah, that is the hardest. I think your fingertips are probably the hardest part of your body to try and keep warm. because, like you say, they're when you're up glassing and they're exposed to the wind, you need to hold on to the binos or your spotter or tripod and moving it around, and you can't tuck them into your jacket as often as you'd like. So, well, I also took in, I guess the gloves I was using while we're on that subject are the Kuyu Yukon Pro gloves. And inside them I have a pair of Kathmandu Merino liner gloves, just to try and add a little bit of extra insulation to the gloves. They're not super warm, those gloves, but they're fairly water resistant. So if you're and wind resistant, so it does kind of give you a bit of compromise between bulk and losing that dexterity and still having a little bit of warmth. The rainwear that I have is, now I use a rain jacket and rain pants, and the reason I use rain pants as well is it's often easier to sit out a rainstorm if you can just tuck yourself into a tree, underneath a tree, and just let the rain come and hit your clothing, and then when it's gone, you can get up, take it off, and then keep walking. And I found that the rain pants, these ones have got zippers up the side. I think they're Outdoor Research. I got them on sale. REI, I think, had them on sale a while ago, and they're Gore-Tex, so they're really good, and they've got zippers on the side, so you can just slip them on and off fairly quickly. You don't need to take your boots off, and we weighed them today. They're 324 grams for that pair of pants. And like I said, what I found is when you're got a bit of a rainstorm coming through, you can throw them on, throw your rain jacket on, sit under a tree or sit under a little tarp, or find somewhere to sort of shelter, and then let the rain come through. You don't mind that it's hitting you, and you can get up afterwards, take them off, and keep walking, and your pants are still dry. If you need to still move, you can do so in these pants, and obviously, you do build up a bit of heat depending on how much you're exerting yourself. But just for me, I've found that the rain pants have been a really good addition.
So I have been humming and hawing a little bit about an outer kind of pant for a rain pant. But I suppose for me, with my long johns, they seem to dry out pretty quick. So and I don't seem to get too cold down my legs. Definitely my upper half cools down, but I find the polyprops do enough for me. They dry out relatively quickly, so I think I won't be purchasing any time soon. But yeah, they've always interested me. But extra weight, extra bits and pieces. But they're, like you're saying, your ones are only 320 grams, so pretty good.
Yeah. And obviously the advantage too is that I also use puffy pants, which I'll talk about in a minute. So if you're sitting in the glass somewhere, you can throw your puffy pants on and then throw your rain pants on over the top, and it just gives you that extra layer of insulation from the wind. The puffy pants don't stop the wind. They will help keep the heat in, but with the rain pants on over the top again, that just helps lock that heat in and keeps you warm while you're sitting down for long periods of time.
I was envious of your puffy pants. With glassing away and you got your nice puffy pants on, and here I am sitting in my long johns, so no, I was envious.
I did offer them to you at one point, but and the rain jacket is the Kuyu Kutana rain jacket, and I really like this jacket. It's tough. I can wear it while I'm walking, pushing through scrub. It's not super quiet, but like we've already said, that's I think a impossibility to try and achieve that. It's got a bit of flexibility to it too, and it's big enough so that I can layer up underneath it. So I'll put my puffy jacket on and then throw that on over the top. And yeah, I haven't had any issues with that leaking. Good size, good fit, good hood on it too, which I think is important because if you do need to wait out a storm, particularly if there's quite a bit of wind in it as well, you can cinch that hood up around your face and neck, and stops the rain from blowing in over the top of your collar. That jacket is 619 grams that we weighed it this morning. And it's easy to take care of too. I just come home from a trip and throw it in the dryer and let it run around for 20 minutes, and that resets the DWR on it apparently, and it's good to go again. So insulation wise, I have a Kathmandu down jacket. Again, Kathmandu gear when it's on sale is really hard to beat pricing wise. So that one, it's a little bit heavy, but I'm yet to be able to sort of justify spending money on another down jacket just because it's lighter when that one's doing the job. I also have a MacPack down vest. Again, MacPack's another one of those brands that when they're on sale, it's hard to beat for value. And the Kuyu down pants. Now I got them about 4 years ago now, 2019 when I was in the States. I think they've got a different version of them out now. It might be slightly bigger. These pants are designed to go over the top of your pants. So the other ones they have now, I think maybe have some more down in them and slightly different material on the outside. But like I said, I use these pants and then throw the rain pants on over the top. Other than that, I didn't take a lot of extra clothing. For some reason, I'm still not sure why, I chose not to bring some spare socks on this trip. Jason was entertaining himself with hand puppets with his spare socks over his hands. So when my socks got wet that day we had the rain, I did regret not having them, but it's also reasonably easy to dry them out overnight. Like I said, the liner socks I had, they dry fairly quickly. So when they were wet that night, I got in the sleeping bag, took my merino socks off, and I just tucked them down inside my pants against my my thighs, upper thighs. Because that's the largest muscle in your body, it generates the most heat, so it's easy to use that as a bit of a heat source and dry things out. And I wore my liners in the sleeping bag that night. Some of the other clothing I was wearing was quite wet too, but I just jumped in the sleeping bag and used my body heat in the sleeping bag to dry it all out, and the next morning it was good to go. Having said that, however, it would have been nice to have another dry pair of socks to put on instead. It's not much weight penalty, so
exactly for the weight and size, it's throw a couple extra pairs in and you love it.
Yeah. And normally I would take a spare pair of socks, the liners and the merino socks, particularly because the liners are thin and sometimes you could end up wearing through or getting a tear in them or something, and that's part of the system I use to help stop getting blisters. And like I said, for some reason, when I was packing my bag, I looked at these spare pair of socks and I put them to the side and didn't bother putting them in. So I'm still not sure why I made that choice, but anyway, only other clothing I really brought that was a camp clothing, I guess, is a long sleeve Kuyu Pro Merino top, and I brought that just to sleep in, to add another layer, and I hardly wore it. So I don't think I'll bother bringing that again, just for that purpose. If I'm going to wear it when I'm hunting, I'll bring it, but just for sleeping clothes, I don't think I'll bother bringing that again. It was a bit of extra, and it's not a super lightweight item of clothing either, so I could probably do without that weight. The belt I have as well, I don't think I mentioned it before. It's a elastic webbing belt with plastic buckles, and I've got no idea. I cannot recall for the life of me where I got it from. I've got a funny feeling I bought it online at some super dodgy website that sells cheap knockoff stuff, but I've never been able to find anything that sort of resembles it again. It's really good because it is a firm elastic webbing, and it's got a really low profile, lightweight plastic buckle, and it just sort of clips in. There's no, it's not a buckle like a side release buckle that you have to squeeze. It just it's got a bit of a solid block hook on it, and it just clips into a hole on the other side. And the advantage of having the elastic there is I find that as your weight fluctuates during the hunt, and as you layer underneath your pants as well, it kind of accommodates that without having to adjust it too much. And it's got infinite adjustment, obviously, because it just loops through the buckle. So if you need to shorten it up, a couple of millimeters, you can do that. So a belt with the traditional holes and so forth, you're very limited in how much you can. So it's either too tight or too loose when you move to the next hole. I have seen there's some other ones around, some other brands in the research that I've done when I've been trying to look for it. I haven't bothered trying them, but that's definitely a recommendation of mine, is to try and get an elastic belt, because as the hunt goes on, you tend to lose weight as you become dehydrated and obviously lose a bit of weight from all the exercise, and it just stops that drama that you have with belts that are not as adjustable. And being low profile as well, when you're wearing a pack, it doesn't interfere with that at all. Some of the other belts I've tried, the buckle was too big. When you'd bend over, it'd sort of pinch you or push in, or it was uncomfortable in some other way. So now, super important piece of gear, the Crocs.
Oh, yeah, I actually forgot about that. Yes, so
Yeah.
we're both running Crocs, different. I think I was just running the traditional Croc all-terrains. Just recently purchased them. To be honest, for this trip, I didn't really use them. I usually use them around, camp around the tent and things. I maybe used them a couple times, but in all honesty, they could have stayed back at home, but they're relatively lightweight. I think you weighed yours. I didn't get a chance to weigh my ones, but yeah, it is nice just to be able to throw some other shoes on, get out of the boots when you are around camp. But yeah, in hindsight, we didn't use them a lot on this trip.
Yeah, I don't bring mine as camp shoes, although you can do that. And mine that we weighed this morning are 453 grams. Now I'm using the Crocs, I think they're called the Swiftwater. So they're not the traditional Crocs with the sort of swing away heel bridge. They are like a one piece. So they do have a heel, a strap, and they're a bit smaller, but they have a bit of a thicker base and different sort of grip on the base. The reason I bring those is mainly for creek crossings. I try to keep my boots as dry as I can for as long as I can, and so I don't like wearing boots on creek crossings, but I've tried doing it in bare feet. I've tried, those like aqua boots.
Aqua boots, yeah.
I've tried those with the really thin soles, and it is painful trying to cross a creek over rocks, sticks, logs, things that you can't see. And so, yeah, that's why I bought the Crocs, was mainly for creek crossing. And I found that the traditional Crocs, because some of the creeks that you do have to cross, the water is flowing quite fast. And I just found that I was always scared the Crocs were going to come off my feet, were going to get washed away. So that's why I went for these Swiftwater ones. They are a lot tighter on your feet. They do hold on more securely. In fact, I think they're sort of designed for fly fishing and standing in flowing water. And I've never, every time I've had to do a creek crossing with them, I've never had an issue feeling like they were going to be washed off my feet. And the the sole's thick enough that it's comfortable when you're walking over rocks. You're not getting stone bruising. You can still feel your way with your feet. You've still got enough sort of sensitivity there that you can make your way slowly across and not stand on something that you shouldn't be standing on. And then, yeah, like I said, get to the other side. They slip off easily, and you can put your dry boots back on. So that was the main reason that I bring those. Because on this trip we had a couple of plans, and we didn't. We weren't 100% sure where we were going, so we kind of wanted to have a bit of a backup. We had a couple of backup plans in place, and some of those backup plans could have involved doing some creek crossings. So that's why I wanted to bring those along. In hindsight, if we were going back to the same area, I probably wouldn't worry about bringing them again. Other than that, in the clothing department, the only other thing I had was a Kuyu Kenai jacket, which is a synthetic jacket. And I brought this as well as the down jacket because this is quite a light insulation piece. So you can wear it while you're walking. It does have things like pit zips in it, so you can regulate your heat. So if you're out and about when it is quite cool and windy, this is a good item to wear, just to give you a little bit more insulation, and particularly if you're stalking, if you're doing some bush stalking, so you're not generating a lot of heat. It's not like when you're walking in, walking out, and you're just storming along and producing a lot of body heat. This is a very effective piece that I found for when you're just sort of sneaking along. You might walk a few steps and stop and glass, or walk 20 meters and glass for a bit and so forth. So it is for those times when you're likely to be colder and you're not generating that body heat. You did ask me whether it was worth bringing that as well as the down. We weighed that this morning. That's 395 grams for that one jacket. It's not enough to replace the down. It's not warm enough to replace the down. But it does have, but wearing a down jacket in that situation, like I said, where you're doing a bit of bush stalking, wearing a down jacket, I think would be a bit too much. So that's something I'm going to think about is that insulation for me, because that's definitely an area that I could potentially look to lose a little bit of weight in. The other thing I didn't mention before, I do have two beanies. So I have a thin merino beanie, which is great for wearing underneath your cap. You can throw it on and just keep a little bit of insulation in. And I also have a Kuyu Kenai beanie. And it's a synthetic fleece with a waterproof outer layer. And that's a really warm beanie. And I'll put that on. As soon as we stop the glass, I'll put that on. You can put it on. It's big enough that and stretches that you can put it on over your cap or just over the merino beanie. And I'll also wear that at night. I see a lot of guys buy tops with hoods in them and jackets with hoods in them. I don't like hoods. I find them to be a pain in the ass, to be honest. Particularly on shirts that you're walking around in, particularly in Australia, you end up having to push through a lot of thick bush. It's very tight.
Just caught up.
It gets caught up. The stuff drops off. And next time you go to pull it up, you end up filling your back up with sticks and leaves, and I've had hairy caterpillars drop into it as well. And thankfully, the hunting partner I was with at the time, he noticed it before I pulled it up, but and it ended up on my back. But so and even if you're in snowing, or if you're in snow or it is snowing, it just fills up with ice, and when you pull it up, you get an injection of cold water or ice down the back of your shirt. So I don't like hoods. The only jacket I have with a hood is the down jacket, because I don't plan on walking around in that, and I generally pull it up and keep it on. So because I don't like the hoods, I also run 2 neck gaiters, and I have a merino neck gaiter, which I will wear majority of the time. And the main reason for having that is it's nice and light, and it will absorb the sweat, and does sort of offer a bit of insulation. The merino's no good in the wind. The wind just blows straight through it. But a big reason for keeping that on is the sun. Keeping the sun off the back of my neck, because I'm wearing a cap instead of a broad brim. And as you're aware, Australia is a great place to get skin cancer. So main reason is sun protection for that. But the second one I run is a synthetic neck gaiter. It's Kuyu. I think it's the Peloton material. And that main reason for keeping that in my pocket is for the wind when it gets cold. So it offers much better wind protection. I can pull that on, take it off very easily, very quickly. You don't have the issue of like with the hood, stuff falling down. You can pull those gaiters. I pull them up around the back of my head and my ears, and cover my ears. I can pull it up around my face to protect from the wind there, keep you warm. And obviously the main advantage is that it covers your face, so you can tuck it up around your nose and under your eyes, and it shields your face. So if you are doing a bit of bush stalking and you think there's something nearby, it obviously shields your face, and you don't have that big
break, big white blob,
big white blob staring at deer for them to, or whatever animal you're hunting, for them to pick up on. So other than the gear that we were walking in with, other than the clothing we were walking in with, the other gear that we were walking in with, that I carry is a set of walking poles. So I use the Black Diamond, I think they're Ergo Cork. I'm not sure if they make them anymore. I haven't seen them around. I've had them for years. They're aluminium. They have the clip lock stays on them. They're not a twist lock. I've had twist locks, and generally I haven't liked them because they've failed, and particularly as they get older and that friction point sort of starts to wear, just haven't trusted them as much. So found these were recommended to me by the guys down at Hunt Shop in Albury, which is a great shop. And I think I mentioned to you, I was hoping to, on the way back from the trip, to stop in there, but we ended up going a different direction, didn't go through Albury. But yeah, Hunt Shop in Albury, great shop, good people, genuine advice there. They won't try and sell you something just because they've got it in stock. And as I said, I've had those for a number of years. I've taken them on every trip ever since I got them. And I've leaned on them so heavily at times I thought for sure I was going to break them, and I haven't yet. So highly recommend. And I carry 2 of them, particularly on the backpack hunts. If it's just day hunting, I'll generally only carry 1. But there's a lot of benefit to carrying 2 poles when you're carrying a heavy pack. It relieves, I think I read one time, it can relieve up to 25% of the weight placed on your knees as you're hiking uphill or downhill by leaning and pulling on the poles. And I like the shape of the Ergo handles. Other ones that I've tried with shaped grips and finger grooves and so forth, I just found that I didn't hold them the way that they were intended to be held. It just wasn't comfortable and ended up causing blisters on some of my fingers. So I know you didn't have a pole on this trip because you broke it or lost it in New Zealand. But the other thing I was carrying, which you liked, was the mountain stick. And this is a carbon fibre It's a bit of a hybrid between a walking stick and a ice axe type thing. And the walking poles were 510 grams. We weighed them this morning, and the mountain stick was 654 grams. So I generally would walk in with the walking poles and leave them in camp, and then I would hunt every day with the mountain stick.
I love the mountain stick. Just I think we mentioned in the last podcast, but the versatility of that, the stick is amazing. I think as soon as we got out, I actually looked them up, and it's definitely going to be on my purchase list. I see they have come up with, I think, a version 4.1 at the moment, so they have made some changes since the version that you've got there, Tobias. But what a cool piece of kit. I was using it as a walking stick for the majority of the trip, and it's just, I loved it. It was a go-to piece of kit, nice and lightweight, but nice and strong. And like you say, you never know what kind of conditions you might get in that you need that. Not so much in Australia to an extent, but still nice just having that ice axe feature in the unit. So it's definitely going to be one of my purchases I will make shortly.
Yeah, like I said, I was carrying, I probably wouldn't on this trip normally carry both. I would either carry one or the other, or maybe lose a walking stick and carry the mountain stick in one hand and the walking pole in the other. But it was more sort of testing it, running it, seeing what I liked about it, what I didn't like. Yeah, that's potentially one thing I could leave behind to save a bit of weight on a similar trip again.
So what would you leave? Would you leave one walking stick and take the mountain stick, or leave the mountain stick, or what do you think you'd do?
Yeah, good question.
Or take all three still?
Yeah. It's honestly, it's hard not to. It's hard not to want to take all three.
Yeah.
I really like walking in with both sticks,
Yeah.
and like on the walk out, we put down a few Ks fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of weren't mucking around. We were talking about doing a bit of glassing on the way out, but the fog rolled in, and so we just went, oh, well, bugger it.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah, let's just get out of here. So having both of those poles, it really helped. I mean, I'm not as young as you, and you certainly had a lot more fitness, mountain fitness, than I did. I wasn't able to train as much as I wanted to before this trip to get myself in shape. You'd obviously had all that month in New Zealand, so you had a bit of residual fitness from that. I think I remember at one point we stopped at that hut, and I dumped the pack, and I'm sitting there puffing and panting, and you're, sitting there. And I said, you could at least pretend to be puffed and breathing heavy, to make me feel better. So yeah, for me, as my body ages and things start to wear out, I think it's hard not to justify bringing both. I don't know. I'll think about that. I guess we'll find out on the next trip whether I bring all three or not.
I'll definitely borrow that mountain stick off you if I haven't purchased one by then. Let's say that.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, they are. He has made a few changes to it. I don't know whether I'd classify them as improvements. Actually, he's made some changes, but I've been pretty happy with that mountain stick, and I did look at the new one that he's running after the trip, like you mentioned, and for me, I'm just not sure whether I would. I can't justify buying a new one just simply because of the changes he's made. I'm so happy with the original one. So other than those, the other bits and pieces that I had on the pack that I was running, I use a Rhino 650 GPS. I also had an InReach, but I'll come back to that. I like having the GPS function on the Rhino, and the Rhino is also a two-way radio. A group of us years ago all bought one each so that we could use that as communication. It is supposed to have a 5-watt radio on it, but in all honesty, it's not a great radio and it's not a great GPS. It does both, but it doesn't do either one really well. So if you were looking for a GPS and you didn't necessarily need the radio, I'd probably recommend looking at something different than the Rhino. They do have a 750 out now, and I know they've made some improvements on it. And it's about the same. I don't think you're going to get anything lighter as far as GPSs go. It's got a reasonably big screen on it, so yeah. I haven't done a lot of research. I haven't bothered looking into any other options on that because I've been happy with that, and I did run it the whole time on this trip, so that we could log our kilometres, just out of interest. Normally I wouldn't do that. Normally I would just try and conserve the battery, and only turn it on sort of when I needed to mark a point or find my way to something, to a waypoint. That just hang on the pack, so that it could log the trip the whole way. In the pockets as well, I had a Leatherman multi-tool. This is one of the original multi-tools they brought out. It was given to me as a gift many years ago, so there are lighter options out there. That one weighs 148 grams. I'm happy to carry that because of the nostalgia attached to it. The Rhino 650 weighs 341 grams. Also had 3 spare rounds in the belt pouch. They weigh 120 grams for all 3. And my hearing protection as well. So I use Axel. I think it's called the Ghost Strike. They're electronic earplugs. Really like those. They actually have microphones on them, so they're sound enhancing. So when you're stalking, you can have them on. You can still listen to external noises, and then as soon as you fire a shot or your mate fires a shot, they just click in and block out the sound. The main reason I got those is because I was hunting with my son a lot now, and I insist on him wearing hearing protection because I made the mistake years ago of hunting without hearing protection, and consequently now have cicadas ringing in my head all the time. And when we used the earplugs, he couldn't hear me.
Yeah. So you're yelling at each other.
Yeah. And I'm trying to whisper to him, and he can't hear me. So I've got to, grab him on the shoulder and distract him and that sort of thing. So did a bit of research, and Axel are there are a few options out there, and there are probably, in all honesty, some better options out there, some higher quality ones, but you're going to pay for them. Like they are literally in the thousands. These ones here, I jumped onto their website and signed up for a newsletter, and they send out promotional emails all the time. And one day they sent out an email saying we're offering a 2-for-1 deal. So I jumped on it, grabbed them, and I got 2 sets for the price of one. So one for my son and one for myself. And we'll wear them when we're red deer hunting, and they're just great. You can hear everything. You can hear the deer roaring. You can hear... They actually increase your hearing ability as well, so they'll amplify external noises. So the only problem is if you're wearing them all the time and they're on all the time, then your battery life gets sucked out. So you'll get basically one day out of them. So when we're red deer hunting, we'll come back to camp, put them on charge for the next day. So in this case, I put them in my pack so I could access them easily in case we needed to, and the situation demanded. But I didn't run them all the time because we weren't actively hunting all the time on this trip anyway. I also carry a little knife in my pocket. I use the Razorlight EDC knife, and this has got a replaceable blade on it. And it's not a surgical blade, it's a particular one that the company makes to fit their knife. The beauty of this is you can... And I like to have a separate knife to my kill kit, because if you're cutting up some food or have to do something where you're transferring it into your transferring the product into your mouth or something like that, it just creates that element of sanitation. There's not cross contamination. But I just got tired of having to sharpen blades. So the beauty of this one is you come back from a trip and take the blade off and put a new one on, and
it's good to go
again.
Yeah, nice.
Other than that, the usual sort of things are I keep a little bit of electrical tape in my belt pouch there for retaping the muzzle when you take a shot. Some people may not like putting tape over their muzzle, but I've done plenty of research on it. There's plenty of videos on YouTube about whether taping your muzzle affects your accuracy, and it doesn't. There's a really good video by MDT, the people that make the rifle chassis. They did testing on their one of their accurate rifles at 600 yards, taped, untaped. They found no discernible difference. So for me, I will always tape my muzzle. I do have a muzzle brake on, so I just put a couple of layers of tape up the sides of that and then wrap it around. It gets blown off long before the projectile ever comes anywhere near it. So I think the peace of mind of having a taped muzzle and not having things end up inside your muzzle. It hasn't happened to me, but one of the people I was hunting with once on a trip, they ducked under a tree, and the muzzle hit the tree, and they actually ended up with a piece of bark wedged inside their muzzle. So yeah, I'll never not tape my muzzle. And the old surveyor's tape, the old pink tape, great. It weighs nothing. Great for keeping, just to mark a spot. You know, if you take a long shot, I'll mark sort of where we took the shot from. So you know, you can always come back there, or you know, you can hopefully see it from the other side of the gully, to try and find. You know, if you've got to try and find a blood trail, where to start from, you know, you can always sight back and find where you shot from, and it helps to locate that.
Yeah, such a good tip, because it's so easy to, you know, spur of the moment, you take the shot, next thing you whip off and you kind of look back and think, you know, was it there? Was it there? But if you just take a little bit extra time with that pink flagging, which I also carry, it can make such a difference with trying to track that animal.
Even I've used it for blood trailing as well. So, you know, you'll mark the spot where you find your first blood, and then you can, you know, you'll start your radius search and find your next spot and mark that, and after a while you can kind of look back and you can see, you know, almost a straight line sometimes to help you predict where the next blood spot might be, and keep going that way. Obviously, you know, don't encourage leaving rubbish in the bush, so go back and pick your pieces up. But a lot of that stuff, if you for whatever reason don't, you know, if you miss a piece or you know, don't get the opportunity, that stuff will degrade under UV. So it's not going to be a long-term sort of cause long-term damage, I guess.
I also put a piece on my GPS, my knives, just bits and pieces that I'm going to, you know, they're quite easy to put down and walk away from. I find it just a great way just to visually see, hey, there's my knife or bits and pieces. So yeah, great way just to help identify it.
Even marking, I've used it to mark camp, where I've done, you know, like a through hike type of thing, and changing camp every day or two. Sometimes it's great to just wrap it around a tree, you know, particularly if you're tucked away in a bit of scrub. Wrap it around a tree near an opening, and then, you know, you're going to be walking back at night time, and that's easy to pick up in your headlamp, and you go, oh, that's right, I've got to turn in here, and camps, you know, 100 meters away or something.
Because it looks so different, you know, under your, you know, your headlamp. It's just you go around and around circles trying to find camp. So any little indicator to help point you in the direction is going to definitely help.
Inside your pack as well, what other things are you keeping in there, like the water bladder? And
yeah, so I thought I'd just jump on a couple more things there. So I'm running a Black Wolf 3 litre hydration bladder. So I have previously run 1.5 to 2 litre hydration packs, but for me, I prefer the larger volume. So I personally go for the 3 litre, and I try to have that full from when I start. So it is an extra 3 kgs on the back. but we weren't super sure about water supplies in this area. So if we're walking in with the maximum amount, it's just going to make life a little bit easier, or just not going to have to rush us to try and find a water source once we got to our camp spot. So I'm running that on for the hydration bladder. The one thing I didn't mention that's also on the external side of my pack is a Peak Design capture clip with the Arca Swiss camera clip. So I will talk about my camera gear a little bit later, but it's just a quick release system that allows me to have my camera mounted to my arm strap, which is excellent. So I've constantly got my camera there on a quick release system, which is attached to my pack. So I'd highly recommend that for those guys out there that enjoy taking an additional camera over their phone into the bush. So what about you, Tobias? What are you running water bladder wise or hydration bladder?
Yeah, so I have the Hydra Pack water bladder, a 3 litre one inside the pack, and the Stone Glacier. You can buy a water bladder carrier that sort of straps into the top of the pack to keep it in place. I went to that one a couple of years ago. I've had quite a few water bladders fail over the years, and one of the keys to successfully walking in with a water bladder as well is to not overfill it. So even though it's a 3 litre one, I think I only put about 1.5 litres in it, just so I had accessible water, because I have the hose running out to the external of the pack that I can access. Because when you, or I think what happens is when you load your pack up on the hike in, if you've got, a lot of water in there, it just seems to find a way that all that weight and pressure. Seems to find a way to make the water bladder fail. These ones, though, I haven't had any issue with this one yet, and it's one of the wide, I think they call it a wide top one, where the whole top of it is open, and it folds over, and then you slide the locking mechanism across, and that sort of locks it all into place. The connections are all very secure. They've all got a rubber O-ring on them, and it's quite a firm connection as well. That once it's locked in, it doesn't seem to have any sort of movement. So it leaves me with a lot of confidence that it's not going to leak at that point, because one of the other places I found they leak is where they just have the plastic hose insert that kind of gets pushed in under pressure, and it might have like the serrations on it. And I found that seems to be, that has failed at that location for me before.
Definitely with the Black Wolf one, that is one of the weaknesses of it, is where it connects on the actual hose to the bladder, like you're saying, with the little notches. I've actually had to put like a O-ring style to tighten it on there to make sure it doesn't slip, otherwise it just fails. Yeah.
The Hydra Pack ones too, they actually send you a little tube of lube, and I didn't bring it on the trip for obvious reasons. I don't want to have that that dispersion cast in my direction, but and what they actually recommend is you use this and lubricate the O-ring regularly. So I normally just, if I'm unplugging it and plugging it back in, I'll just put it in my mouth, put a little bit of saliva on it to lubricate it, so it's not going in dry, because that's obviously a wear point then if the rubber isn't lubricated. The old saying, there's always time for lube. The other water bottles I brought in as well are, again, Hydra Pack, the 2 litre, I think it's called the Camp bottle, I'm not too sure on the name. It's a larger one. Again, it's flexible. It's actually got some sort of strap mounts welded onto it as well, and that's just a bottle that I could use to collect water in or keep water back at camp. And 2 of the 1 litre stash bottles. Now these are a wide mouth bottle. Again, flexible, they compress right down. And why I went to these and like these, as opposed to the Nalgene, I used to use Nalgenes years ago, My only problem with the Nalgene is when it's empty, you then have this plastic bottle in your bag that's just taking up space. And when it's half full, then you've got water sloshing around in the sound of water sloshing around in your pack too.
Yeah, I think that Nalgene are just so overrated bottles. I don't know why they seem to be so popular, but to me, at the times I have used them, they have a pain to drink out of. They slosh around, or they're empty and cumbersome. So for me, I've got no time for them.
Yeah, I do know they're indestructible and they won't leak.
Yeah.
So that they are advantages with the Nalgenes. But yeah, for me, in this situation anyway, I just didn't want to take them anymore. Didn't want to carry them. So I actually stumbled across the Hydropack stash years ago, and I got the 1 litre ones because with the SteriPen, you can only treat up to 1 litre of water. And with the wide mouth on it as well, you can get the SteriPen in there and stir it around and make sure you stir the water up and get it all sterilised. The other thing to note too is that the diameter of the mouth is exactly the same as a Nalgene, because Nalgene sell a insert that goes inside the mouth that has a little piece cut out of it to make it easier to drink out of. And that fits inside the mouth of these.
I saw those in your ones.
Yeah. So it's got the advantage of, you fill it up with water, you can sterilise it. It's a lot neater if you're pouring hydration powder in or something like that, instead of trying to get it through a narrow opening. And then you put the little insert in, put the lid on, shake it up, and good to go. Easy to drink out of. And then when it's empty or when it's half full, you can compress it down, lock the lid off, doesn't slosh around. And then when it's empty, it just collapses down, and you can just throw it into the side pocket of your pack, or
it's not rattling around. It's a matter of the material that rubber material just nice and quiet and tucks away.
And I also used them, and I was a bit hesitant to do this at the start. I actually went and bought myself a second one in case I ruined the first one when I was testing this. But you can fill them up with hot water. This is one of the advantages of a Nalgene, so I wanted to test this with this bottle. To fill them up with hot water and throw them into your sleeping bag. So you've got essentially a hot water bottle to help warm your feet up.
Yeah, nice.
And because it is a softer, flexible material, I was worried that the hot water would expand and perhaps, or even melt it or deform it or something or other. But it didn't. And it didn't force past, because the hot water, of course, expands, and the air inside there expands. And it didn't force past the seal or anything like that, so it didn't leak. So I was confident to be able to do that and throw it into the bottom of the sleeping bag as a hot water bottle. And then the next morning you've got a bottle of water, for your coffee or, breakfast, that sort of thing. So, really been really impressed with those. And haven't had a puncture in them yet. I'm happy to keep using those.
Nice.
The other thing I had to attach to the outside of my pack for the walk-in was the seat mat that I use. I should mention the weights of those. So the 3 bottles together, the 2 1 litre and the 1 2 litre, were 253 grams for the 3 bottles. So I don't know how that compares to a Nalgene, but that's still bugger all weight to carry for 4 litres of water carrying ability. So the seat mat that I have is a cut down Thermarest mattress. So it's a closed foam cell mattress. It's the long one, the full length one that they make. It's not they actually do have a little seat. I think it's called the Z-Rest, which is a smaller version of it, but it concertinas up on it itself. This is actually the full sleeping mat. And the reason why I did this, I think I saw John Barklow did this on one of his videos. I've actually cut it down to about 3/4 in length. And the reason I did this is it gives, not only is it a good seat, So you can fold it over or even have it, 3-layered and give you that extra padding, which is good if you're sitting on particularly rough, rocky ground or a big rock, or having to sit on a log or something like that. It just adds extra thickness to the padding. And being as long as it is too, I should get it out and measure it actually, just to give you an idea of the length. But being as long as it is, I can lay down and I can stretch it out and lay down on it. So if you want to have an afternoon nap, put it up against your pack, use your pack as the pillow, lay down, and it covers basically from my shoulders to my butt. So when you're laying on cold ground, it's a insulation layer. You don't end up with a cold spot on your back. And again, particularly, as you age, sleeping on, laying down on cold surfaces is not great for your muscles and joint. And the other advantage is if my air mattress goes flat, gets a hole, I can use this as an emergency backup, something to sleep on, so I'm not sleeping on the cold, hard ground. So I might actually go and get it, and I'll run the tape over it.
A bit of a measure?
Yeah, just out of interest sake.
Yep. While you're doing that, I might just carry on with a bit of chat about my bino harness and things that I run for my setup. So every hunt I do, I always run a bino harness. So when I'm hiking into hunting, I'm always running the bino harness. For me, I'm running the Bush Edge, or they've done a collaboration with the actual Twin Needles who make the bino harness, which is their version 2 option of it. And I love it. It's super durable, super comfy, and probably one of my main bits of kit that I'd recommend to someone. If you haven't tried a good quality bino harness, then I'd definitely recommend giving one a go. It's just a comfort and ease of having your binos, plus a few other items tucked away there in the bino harness, has been just excellent. So I run the Twin Needle bino harness with the Minox 8.5 by 43 mil binos. Once again, I've had those for years. Good quality glass and relatively just a good all-round set of binoculars that I use. In addition to the binos, I also have a Hunter's Element bino pouch that just attaches to one of the straps there for the bino harness, and that and in there I run a Sig Sauer Kilo 1800 rangefinder. That rangefinder does run with my scope, so it's one of those Bluetooth, you dial your animal and it'll actually range through the scope. And then the only other item I do run in my rangefinder is a knife, and I'm just running the Dog and Gun branded R&N blade, which is the helium model, so super lightweight. It has the paracord on the handle, and that always lives in my bino harness. So pretty much if I need to drop my pack, and finally I also run my phone, so phone for navigation. That always lives inside my bino harness as well. So I can drop my pack relatively quickly, and with that bino harness on, I've pretty much got everything I need to bone out a deer. I've got navigation. So yeah, that's the kind of go-to I go with my bino harness. How'd you go with your length there, Tobias?
Yeah, so it's just over a metre, about a metre. I'm not. I work in millimetres. It's 1,050 millimetres, and the weight that we've got was 198 grams. Okay. So 200 grams for really versatile. A bit of equipment. I have heard other people talk about using their mat to sort of signal people from long distance. So it's silver on one side and sort of coyote colour on the other.
Yeah.
Whether you'd be able to see that from a distance or not, I don't know. But I don't go on any hunts without it now, regardless of whether it's a day hunt or backpack trip. And the other part of it that I cut off, I actually gave to my son.
Oh, nice.
So he has a similar sort of thing as well that he takes with him.
For this trip, I don't usually run one, and I was trying to madly scramble around the Hunting Expo and then a few other options to try and find one for this trip. But didn't come together, so I wasn't personally running one, but I will be looking at purchasing something going forward, because just that little bit of extra insulation, once again, it's just trying about keeping warm when you are in those glassing situations, your hands, your bum, the things that can, just those little comforts can make you just be a little bit more alert, and yeah, definitely recommend it.
Yeah. So you were talking about your bino harness. My bino harness, I use the Kuyu Pro bino harness. I have a little flip out pouch on it as well, and I also use their bear spray holder. Now, I don't need it for bear spray. I use that pouch to carry my glasses case in, so it's just the right size actually for the case that my glasses needs to go in. And when I'm not wearing them, I prefer to put them away in the case, in the hard case, so that they're not at risk of getting damaged, because if you put them on your head, they always forget they're there, and they end up falling off the top of your head and bouncing off the ground. And I dropped them recently, and one of the lenses actually fell out. So the last thing you want to happen when you're out in the bush is for a lens to go into the long grass. So my binoculars, I'm running the Leica range-finding binos. I went away from carrying a separate rangefinder years ago. I just found the having the integrated rangefinder in the binoculars so much easier, so much more convenient. It's when you're looking at something, looking at an animal or an object, trying to get an idea of a range, and then you've got they're 10 power binoculars, and then you've got to pick up your rangefinder, which is, might only be 4 power. It looks different, and the time it takes to find where you were looking at can sometimes make all the difference.
And I was always constantly asking you just to range a spot, because just the ease of you looking at an area and asking, how far is that, which saved me just, laziness, I suppose, of getting my rangefinder out. But I was constantly quizzing you, Tobias, on distances, which made it nice and easy.
And it's always a good way to pass the time as well. When you're sitting there and you're not seeing anything, you can play a bit of a game and say, okay, how far do you reckon it is to that rock, or how far is it to that one there, or things like that. And it's
helps pass the time.
Yeah, that's right. Helps pass the time, and sometimes it can be difficult sitting out there for long periods of time. Also on my binoculars, I use a thing called the Bino Buddy, and I got this from the Go Hunt shop. And this is a neoprene cover that goes over the eyepiece of your binoculars, and essentially sort of locks in against your face and blacks out around the outer edges. So it just stops that when you're glassing and you've got the sun, to your right, or directly to your right or left. It just stops the sunlight coming in around the side of your binos and gives you a much clearer picture, because you've got that black edge all the way around it. They also make one for spotting scopes as well, similar sort of thing. And I just find that it's much easier, much more comfortable for long glassing sessions to have that there, and it helps you really focus on what you're looking at, rather than trying to tip your hat to stop the sun coming into the side, or
I often use the hand method. You're trying to use your hand to block that glare, but then, like you say, then you kind of lose the focus on what you're actually trying to do. So
yeah, and then you're bumping your binos, and particularly if it's not on a tripod and you're freehanding it, I'll hold my binos, lock my fingers into the brim of my cap, and then use my thumbs to sort of push that Bino Buddy up against my temples, and it just locks it in, nice and securely, and you're not having to try and do it one-handed while you're holding the brim of your hat down and shaking and so forth. So it's a good addition. I can thoroughly recommend. Also on the binos, I've got a ASIAC equipment bino, a tripod adapter. So this is just a really lightweight clamp that goes onto your binos, bolts on, It's got one screw in it. Sorry, not as in a screw into your binos, but on the clamp. And on the bottom of it, it's got a Arca Swiss attachment, or it's integrated into the bino adapter. It's a really clever bit of kit. Lightweight, very low profile. It doesn't hardly at all affects the binos coming in and out of the bino harness. Made in Alaska. I think he 3D prints them. Makes different sizes, so pretty much has a size to suit any binocular. I think he actually makes some for rangefinders now and some spotting scopes too. So AZIAC equipment. So it's worth looking into. Okay. I put a video up a little while ago on my my social media, but I might actually put it on the Australian Hunting Backcountry podcast Instagram. That would be a smart thing to do. On the little flip out pouch, I carry lip balm. Always end up with cracked lips on a cold weather hunt. I have a little small torch, it's a AAA battery style torch, just as a backup in case I need something, light on something, or to look into something. I can put the torch in my mouth if I'm, fiddling with something in my hands. And I didn't weigh it, but it weighs next to nothing. It's only basically the weight of a AAA battery. The old smoke in a bottle, the wind checker. Also have a lens cloth hanging off the bottom of the bino harness. In that pouch, again, I carry 3 spare rounds. On the side pocket, I'll carry my mobile phone. That's I've got an iPhone 12, I think it is. It's 210 grams. So all up, before the mobile phone, and also I'll carry another little bit of flagging tape in there. And I also have a pair of custom molded earplugs. So these are the ones that you sit down with them, they mix up a 2-part thing, inject it in your ear, and then you end up with a very snug, custom made earplug. So I'll always carry those with me as well in one of the side pouches on the bino harness, just if I need to access them quickly, then I know they're in there. Again, I learnt my lesson from many years of it, of shooting without ear protection, that the importance of having them in there. So the bino harness with all that, without the mobile phone, weighs 1.73 kilos. That's without the glasses as well, but glasses are very light. They're actually the titanium frame glasses. The mobile phone's 210 grams on top of that. I was also carrying an InReach, which I was mucking around with moving it in different places. I have, again, it comes from AZIAC equipment. They make a little mounting adapter for some of the Garmin products. So the InReach, now this is the first InReach. It's not the Mini 2. That weighs 109 grams. So I was moving it sort of between the bino harness and different locations on my pack, just trying out different locations for the adapter. As opposed to using the carabiner and the strap, because then I didn't. One thing about that, I didn't like it flopping around. That was the only thing about the InReach that I didn't like. Now, like I said, that's the first InReach. They now have an InReach Mini 2, which has some software upgrades, which we discovered the difference between them when we were trying to link up devices. So just be mindful of that. Work it out. Our advice is if you've got a hunting partner and you're going to use the InReach to message each other, work it out before you go, because we spent quite a bit of time. Thankfully, we still had mobile phone service and we were able to to use Google to find the answers to work out what the problems was, and worked it out in the end. Yeah, there's a software difference between the models. Where are we up to now, Jason?
Well, I think we're pretty much covers the bino harnesses and things. I think we'll jump now onto maybe the tent situation. The tent, then go into our sleeping arrangements. So for myself, we're both running individual tents for this trip. I was running the MacPack Nautilus. This is a 2-person tent, and it weighs 2.4 kgs. So hindsight, probably going forward, I'll be looking at a smaller single person. I can probably save probably 1 kg there. So I will be looking at what my options are in regards to a single person tent. But yeah, I was running the MacPack Nautilus 2-person, and nice easy tent to set up. It went very well in the weather. We had everything from rain, snow, sleet, and I had no issues with any water ingress into the tent. Nothing from the floor. So overall, I was very happy with how it's performed. I've used it a lot over the years, and I've never had a drama with it. And it is relatively small, but there is, I suppose, an extra kg or so just with the size of it. So yeah, I was happy with my tent setup.
When you say that's a 2-person, is it a genuine 2-person? Could you actually put 2 people in there, or is it?
Yeah, it's actually a genuine 2-person. It is a decent size inside. I actually brought it because we thought we had an additional Blake was going to come and join, and he could have jumped in there quite easily. So yeah, it is actually a 2-person.
Yeah, sometimes a lot of times tents get advertised as a 2-person, but the reality of putting 2 people in these tents is, not always a reality. So I was running the Hilleberg Acto 1-person tent, and the footprint on that as well, and I had the cold weather inner. So I also have a mesh inner for it for warmer weather hunts, but this one had the full inner. That weighed 1.833 kilograms. It's a single pole design. It is it's got a little bit of extra room, so 1 man and their gear. I'm 6 foot, nearly 6'2", basically. The tent was plenty long enough for me. I actually had room at the end of my sleeping mat to put a bit of gear out there. So it's not a 1 man where you feel claustrophobic and you're touching the tent everywhere. Like I said, I had enough room inside the tent to keep my gear in there. I put my rifle in there next to me. I had my food bags. I put my boots at the end of the tent, to stop them from icing up, freezing. And yeah, still plenty of room for me and to stretch out comfortably.
So then I suppose what we'll do is then we move on to what we're actually sleeping on and in. So for myself, the sleeping bag I was using is probably about 15 years old. It was a MacPack Sanctuary 700 XP down sleeping bag. Now this weighs around 1.5 kgs and packs relatively small, being a 100% down bag. So that was my sleeping bag. It's rated to, I think, -15, so it's one of the top end bags at the time. Saying that, I was predominantly warm for the majority of the trip. I did have a little bit of issues with cold feet on a couple nights. In addition to the sleeping bag, I was running one of the Alton Goods insulated sleeping mats, and that's rated with an R value of 4 and came in at a weight of 510 grams. In addition to that sleeping mat, I also had one of their fitted sheets, which is actually surprisingly 350 grams, so actually a little bit higher than what I was expecting, and also using one of the ultralight pillows, which was a total of 104 grams. So my total sleeping setup with the sleeping bag, mat, pillow, etc. came to 2.5 kgs. So including the tent, that's putting me close around that 5 kg mark. But in saying that, with that setup, I knew that when I got back to camp, I could get in there, I was going to be warm, I was going to be dry, and I was going to be comfortable. So first time, or second trip running the Alton Goods sleeping mat, one of the mats, which comes with the additional bag that you use to kind of force the air into the mat. Amazing, game changer, love it. So if you haven't used a insulated sleeping mat with a baffle kind of system, I'd highly recommend checking them out, because it makes such an improvement on your night's sleep, which is so important for being ready for your next day hunting.
Yeah, quality sleep can make all the difference. I know I've done trips previously where I've tried to go like uber lightweight and have tried to sleep on not these quality sort of mats. I won't necessarily mention the ones that I was on, but and you're cold. There's cold spots. You're uncomfortable. You wake up the next morning and you feel worse than you did when you went to sleep. So yeah, definitely quality of sleep is one of the big keys in the backcountry to recovering properly from the day and being ready for the next day. Nothing worse than waking up tireder than what it was when you went to bed. Did you mention the pillow then as well?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
So there's about 100 grams for the ultralight pillow.
Yeah, and that slips into a pocket on that sheet.
It does. So yeah, it fits in there. And the thing I loved about the fitted sheet is it kind of stopped me slipping around with my sleeping bag. Then I have my pillow tucked up under the fitted sheet, and that once again that holds that in place. So you kind of wake up. If you do wake up during the night, you're pretty much in position. You haven't slipped and slided all around the tent. Which just once again improves that kind of the quality of sleep.
Yeah, I think that's having the pillow locked in place is also something that's very important, because previously where I've done trips where you've got a pillow and it's you wake up in the middle of the night and your pillow's sort of laying next to you, and then you end up with a sore neck and so forth. So what I find I do now is I'll put the pillow in the head of my sleeping bag to hold that in place, and then I can sleep with my head out of the sleeping bag. And so instead of using the hood of the sleeping bag, I'll use a beanie instead. So I have the Thermarest Neo Air X-Therm sleeping mat. That's got a R value of 6.9, I believe. I think they've actually brought out a new model. I was listening to something the other day, and they have another version of it out now, and I think it's even higher R value again. So I haven't seen too many sleeping mats with an R value higher than that or around that. I know there's a Cedar Summit version they brought out, which is pretty high. But it's 664 grams for that sleeping mat, and it rolls up probably about the size of a
the old Nalgene.
Nalgene, thank you, the Nalgene. Yeah, it's about the same size as a Nalgene, probably slightly smaller. I have a Thermarest Q-Star sleeping bag, which is a -6. It's a down sleeping bag, 1.15 kilos. We weighed it this morning. I like that mat. I like that bag. What I really like about it is it has some straps that run around, that attach to the back of the bag, that run underneath your sleeping mat. So there's one sort of roughly just below your shoulders and one sort of down around hip, and that locks it on to your sleeping mat. So what I found previously is if you're sleeping on a bit of because you can never find a perfectly flat campsite, so it's always a bit of an angle that you're sleeping on, and I always end up sliding off the mat and ending up partially on the ground, on the floor of the tent. I've had to pack things around me previously, tuck your food bags in around you and bulk stuff up to help try and prevent you sliding off. But by having those straps, it stops that. And the other thing I found is that when you do move around inside your bag, when you want to roll and sleep on your side, the bag stays still and you move inside the bag. So that's the big advantage for it, is you don't end up getting tied up, tangled up in your sleeping bag, and waking up, in the dark and not knowing how to get out of your sleeping bag, not knowing where the zip is, and or lying on the zip and the thing's digging into you. So I'm sure everybody's got experience with that if you've slept on the ground in a sleeping bag. And I also have it's a Cedar Summit pillow, little. I think it's the medium size. It's got a felt sort of side to it. Probably going to try another pillow for the next trip. I wasn't 100% happy with that one. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just I think I want to try something different. Maybe I need a slightly bigger pillow. Or something maybe a little bit thicker.
Did you play around with the inflation of the pillow? Because I found with the older kids, I really had to deflate. I probably over inflated first up, but really had to drop that pressure down to kind of make it a bit more comfy.
Yeah, you really don't need much air in it. No. And this is the first time I've tried a pillow. I've tried a blow up pillow. Normally I've used a stuff sack with your down in it, or clothing, or the lid of your pack, that sort of thing. So this is the first pillow I've tried it, and I've had it out in a few different hunts, and I think maybe I'll go for something a little bigger, and just see how that goes. Another shelter that other than the tent that I had was a small tarp, and if you listen to the first podcast, we were sheltered under that as the rain and snow came down onto us. That's made by Tier Gear, a little company in Tasmania. It's 384 grams. I think it's 2.5 meters by. Sorry, I think it's 3 meters by 1.5 meters, or 3 meters by 2 meters, something like that. It's not super huge.
I reckon it would have been 3 by 1.5, because it didn't really have that kind of width. Maybe 2 meters might have been a little bit better potentially with that setup. Yeah,
I got it just as a very sort of quick shelter type thing, not for not for living under, just as a throw up shelter. I carry it with me sort of every day when we were out, if we needed to sit out a rainstorm or something like that. And it's also, I guess, blaze orange in colour. Again, I chose that colour just for secondary use in case there was an emergency and we needed to signal, or have somebody spot us from the air or from a distance or something like that. I got a bit of cheap paracord off eBay, tied that on to a few of the guy out points, and when I ordered it, I got a couple of tabs put in the middle of it so that you could actually hang it. So if you were sitting under a tree or a branch or something like that, you could hang it from a vertical location and then sort of tie it out, and use trekking poles and that sort of thing as some makeshift poles. So pretty versatile bit of gear. And to be honest, that's the first time that I've used it, was on that trip. And that, I should point out too, that 384 grams, that's actually with, I think I've got 8 pegs inside the bag as well. Yep. Lighting. So I actually have 3 headlamps, but the third one I keep in the emergency kit. So I have 2 headlamps. I've learnt over the years to carry more than 1 headlamp. Like I said before, in the backcountry, 1 is none, 2 is 1. Previously, for whatever reason, the headlamp I was using has failed. It wasn't a battery issue, it was the headlamp. Another time I dropped one and broke the clip that holds the battery compartment shut. So it would then spring open, and subsequently the light would go out because the batteries would lose connection. So you'd have to strap the thing up with electrical tape. So I have 2 Phoenix headlamps actually. One I bought years ago, and one I bought at the Deer Expo, and I bought the second one because it has the red light bulb in it as well, which it's good for, early morning, leaving camp where you don't need a huge amount of light. You just need to know sort of where you're putting your feet, but you don't want to be too obvious. You don't want to, potentially spook something. And the other lamp has, it's quite powerful. It's got a, I don't know the lumens off the top of my head. Again, I'll probably post pictures and details on the Instagram page. But it's more for that walking back to camp at night, or having to find your way somewhere. It provides plenty of light, plenty of visibility in the dark conditions.
And is that in addition? Then you've got your fourth light on your bino harness. Is that an additional one or not?
Yes. So then I've got the little torch,
Yep.
Little AAA battery torch, and the other bit of lighting that I have. So the weights for those 148 grams for the white light and the 157 grams for the white light red lamp headlight. And the other bit of lighting that I generally bring is a little solar lamp. It's 73 grams. Now it's actually a little blow up lamp. So it's got some LEDs in it. Plastic case. You blow it up, couple of breaths, and it's a little small cylinder, and it's got a solar panel on the end to charge it. It also has a red light on it and flashing lights. So if you're ducking out for an afternoon hunt, sometimes I'll hang it in a tree, turn it on, leave it on flashing. So again, when you're walking back to camp at night in the dark, you eventually see there's a flashing light and help you get back to camp. Probably two criticisms with it is it doesn't have the ability to be externally charged, so you can't. So it's completely reliant on the solar panel to charge it. So if you have a lot of cloud and you use it a lot, it runs out of batteries. It won't charge. And what I would actually like on it, and we spoke about this, and I'm pretty sure the technology exists out there already, would be to have a switch on it, a light sensitive switch, so that you could hang it in a tree all day, it'd charge up, and then when the light faded to a certain degree, it would actually automatically switch on, rather than having to leave it on all the time.
Exactly, and wasting that battery. Well, yeah, we maximise it. And we actually did use that light when we did that water run as a great visual kind of indicator of where camp was, and just helped, aid us in that direction of camp.
Yeah. It's good to have it in the tent at night too as well. It's a bit easier to find than stumbling around for a headlamp in the dark.
I was actually I took only the one headlamp in on the trip, and I was just running the Olight Pre-Run 2. Great headlamp. I have done a review. If you check out the LiquidAntler YouTube channel, you can do a bit of a review on there. Quite a robust design, and you had no issues with it. Probably in hindsight, I probably should run an additional little emergency light, and there'll be something I'll probably look into.
Yeah, look, I like I said, over the years I've learnt lessons the hard way. If your headlamp fails, you're reliant on your mate then, and
slows everything down a lot.
Yeah. Good way to find all the trip points when you're walking back to camp.
Exactly.
Cooking gear. So we actually shared cooking gear on this trip. I brought the stove. Jason was just borrowing mine. I used to use jet boil. Had a couple of jet boils over the years, and nothing wrong with them. I just made the decision a little while ago I wanted to try something different. So I got a different burner. I went to a Soto Windmaster, which is just a burner that screws onto your gas canister. Comes with a pot stand that's sort of spring-loaded, thing that you have to manipulate onto the top of the burner. And I got two titanium pots. So I got the Toaks titanium 700ml and a Toaks 900ml pot. The 700mm, I can fit the stove and a gas canister and a couple of other little bits in to the 700mm, and then the 700mm nests nicely in the 900mm. I don't use the lid on the 700mm, but I kept the lid for the 900mm. And I also have a piezo lighter, an MSR lighter. Even though the Windmaster has its own piezo ignition system on it, I just like running a separate one because I don't want to use that one. They've all got a limited sort of lifespan, and I'd rather try and preserve that one for as long as I can. And I have a little silicon pot handler that just slips over 2 fingers, and it's got a little sleeve so you can take the pots off straight away, because the Toke's pots don't have any insulation on the handles, and it will transfer the heat into the handle. So it's too hot to pick up. Once you boil some water, it's too hot to pick up with your bare hands. I also put a bit of paper towel in there as well, just to clean up when I need to. And all of that, like I said, it all fits all inside each other. And then the pots come with a mesh bag, so I can put them in the mesh bag. Underneath it all, I tuck in a collapsible Cedar Summit cup. It's a silicon cup with raised ridges all around it. So I think it's called the X cup. So you can handle. One of the downsides of the silicon cups is it transfers the heat. So if you're trying to drink a hot cup of coffee, it's often too hot to hold in your hand. So these ridges kind of add a little bit of insulation to it, so you can actually handle it. And you still use it. You can wrap your hands around it and still get the heat to help warm your hands. And I also tuck in there a fork and spoon combo, and I think this is a human gear. It's a 2-piece one, and it actually connects, so it connects in the middle and folds into itself. So you can use it as a short spoon or short fork, or when you're eating dinner out of your your Alpha packets, they'll connect together and it extends. So all of that in together is 642 grams. Separate to all of that as well, now there's we carried a spare gas canister, which is about 100 grams traditionally, and separate to that as well, I also carry a long spoon. It's a Cedar Summit plastic spoon. I don't use the titanium or alloy spoons. I had a spork years ago, and it punctured the bag that it was in, and so I just prefer the plastic from now on. That I didn't weigh that, but that weighs next to nothing. And the other things I also bring as well are a titanium grill. Now this is a Alton Goods titanium grill. It's probably, I think, about 150 by probably 250 millimeters in size. Now it weighs. Now I also carry a small, thin piece of cutting board. So this is very thin, probably about 1 millimeter thick plastic cutting board. I cut it to about the same size as the grill. It's off one I had in the kitchen for years. I like to bring that for cooking a bit of camp meat. So the cutting board is there to cut the meat on. I just prefer keeping. I know, you can cut it on a log, or cut it on your backpack or something like that. But I just prefer having a separate cutting board just to prevent getting blood on the things that you don't necessarily need it on. I know you can wash it off, but if it's after a while, particularly if it's at the start of a hunt, splashing blood around on things that you don't need, it tends to smell and attract flies. And
the thickness that you've gone for, it weighs nothing, doesn't it? It just tucks in with that titanium grill, and you wouldn't even know it's there.
Yeah. Well, 2 of them together weigh 170 grams.
Yeah.
And that's the grill inside a plastic bag as well. So I treated it with olive oil, so that's why I keep it inside the plastic bag. And I've used that before. We shot a deer for some camp meat, and we had a little fire and cooked the back steaks over the fire on the grill, and I carry a little bit of olive oil and a packet of seasoning mixed with me as well. And it's just whilst you don't necessarily need more food, it's just a different element, and a hot bit of meat on a cold night certainly helps to raise the morale. We did already speak about some of the issues that we had with that, with the gas mainly. We went through 2 gas canisters.
So those 100-gram canisters.
Yeah, before the trip was up, we couldn't actually, we didn't have enough gas to sufficiently make a cup of hot coffee on the last morning. And we did make some hot chocolate one day on the side of the hill with a small fire. So that was the main reason that I went to the titanium pots, was to have that flexibility to be able to use it over a fire instead of having to always cook over gas. So we were able to do that one day. We boiled up some water and had a hot chocolate. So 2 meals every night, cup of hot coffee each day each, and a couple of hot chocolates, and we used up both gas canisters. So I did a bit of research when I came back, got on to watched a few things from John Barklow, and I'm going to say that the temperature and the altitude affected the gas. So yeah, in retrospect, we were contemplating bringing a 3rd canister, and I said no because I thought those 2 would be well and truly enough. And to be honest, on other hunts that I've done, I've never had the issue of running out of gas. So whether this was to do with on those trips I was using a jet boil, so that was one of the issues that you raised, was perhaps the jet boil is more efficient than the Soto Windmaster that I was using. I'm going to say it's probably a combination of all 3: the altitude, the temperature, and the burner that we were using. So in hindsight, what would we do differently? Would we bring another one? Would we bring one big gas canister and a little one? Or do you think the system needs to be mixed up?
Next time I probably would bring another unit personally. I've got a jet boil at home, and for the weight and size, and also just from my previous experiences of cookers playing up, probably would have brought an additional one, just for one additional canister. And it would have given us just a little bit more, easier in the evening just to cook, together instead of waiting for one to finish. But yeah, so probably an additional unit, I reckon, in hindsight.
Yeah, look, the other thing too, I guess that we need to consider is some of the meals you had were the
on-track meals, which were heating up the water and actually placing the packet inside the water and then heating the packet up instead of actually boiling the water and then entering the contents into the packet.
Yeah, so we would have to boil the water and then keep it on a rolling boil to heat that meal. So that's probably another factor that needs to be weighed in as well, is that, with the dehydrated and freeze-dried meals, you would just boil the water and pour it in then, and that would be the end of the cooking. So yeah, so perhaps now knowing that, these are things you learn. If we were going to take those meals again, definitely bring another canister or another stove, like you're saying. I looked at some white spirit stoves as well. So I'm definitely considering perhaps buying one of those and trying that on the next trip. And just doing a comparison about the weights and how much more weight it's going to cost to bring the white fuel in and one of those stoves.
I suppose the only additional things I had from my side was more about the cutlery side, was just I had a dog and gun, just an enamel mug, pretty standard. I was running a Cedar Summit titanium spoon, just run a spoon, no fork or anything like that. And the only other thing I had was a MacPack collapsible bowl. I think there was the 1/2 litre version, and hindsight, it weighs nothing. It doesn't really take up much space, but I didn't even use it the whole trip. It just sat there. So to be honest, I wouldn't bring it again.
And I've seen similar sorts of things and have considered bringing them, but again, to me, I sort of wrote it off and thought, well, it's just something else to carry, and it's something else to then have to clean.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no real good reason to be eating out of a bowl, there's no reason you can't eat out of the plastic bags and things like that. So we won't talk too much about food. I'll perhaps do another breakdown on food.
Yeah.
What I will say though is I took too much food. I took way too much food. I used to, every time I'd come back from a trip, I would make notes of what worked, what didn't work, and used to log the sort of food that I would take and consume so that I could then adjust it for the next trip. Because it's been, probably 4 years since I've done a proper backpack trip like this, I couldn't find that list again. So I did say in the previous podcast, I kind of panic bought before the trip and was worried that I didn't have enough food, and went out and bought a few more things and threw them in, and that was a problem because I came back with far too much food. So I'll break that down differently, but what I did enjoy and was worth bringing in was the hot chocolate. Having the dog and gun hog chockey was a couple of days there was a real pick me up.
Yeah, definitely made a huge difference. Having a nice warm brew on the side of a hill, so yeah, it was definitely very, very worthwhile. The next thing I guess we might have a chat about is just what I call my oh shit bag, or my survival kind of gear, or if something does happen on the side of the hill and you're in a position that, hey, when something's going on here, I like to carry with me. So I'll just kind of run through this, what I take, and I think it probably is time for a bit of a review of it, make sure I am carrying everything I need. But at the moment, my survival kit, or my oh shit bag, is a Cedar Summit 10 litre dry bag, and I have this in a bright yellow colour, nice and easy to see, accessible. I let Tobias know at the start of the trip, we kind of both did this, where these are located. Within there, I have my Garmin 66i InReach GPS, so that's the InReach unit that I'm using. So that's a built-in GPS plus InReach satellite communication. I also have a KTI Safety Alert PLB, so that's a standalone PLB unit, about the size of your palm, nice and lightweight, and I've always carried a PLB at all times. Just one thing to mention, if you are carrying a PLB, make sure that you have registered the unit, and I believe you do have to do a renewal of the unit or the registration every 2 years. Usually you get an email to notify you, but just make sure your registration is up to date if you are running one. Additional bits of items I'd run is a silver compass for navigation if I need it, and then I just run all my kind of standard plasters, Nurofen, crepe bandages, etc. I also run a lighter, matches and rubber in a plastic bag, so if I need to start a fire, I can. I've got a whistle for an emergency. If you do become lost or someone is trying to find you, a whistle will use a lot less energy to raise an alarm, so it's a very easy way to kind of help direct location, or people that are looking for you in your direction. Emergency blanket, that always lives in there, so if I do get myself in a situation, say I break my leg, I've activated my InReach, I need to stay warm, and the emergency blanket is going to be my go-to. Get myself inside there, try and keep that body temperature up, and play the old waiting game while search and rescue come in to hopefully locate you. So I've got my InReach, I've got my PLB, they've been notified, and now it's a matter of a waiting game and staying warm and dry. Other little things I have in there, spare shoelaces, just in case I bust my bootlaces, a little tape measure, just in case you are successful in a hunt. I always like to have a bit of a measure up and see what I'm dealing with. And splinter picks, I use those constantly to get little bits out of your hand, so I have a few of those in my emergency kit. And then finally, I run a lightweight Easy Lap diamond steel. So unlike some people that run an individual kill kit, I don't really run a kill kit at all. I just have this emergency kit which has all those bits and pieces. It also has an additional spare Gerber knife, which is a Gator Mate knife. So I run the two knives. One lives in my emergency kit, and that's what I use pretty much for my. I don't have a standalone kill kit. It's all in that one bag, and that's kind of my go-to.
So continuing on with where we left off, unfortunately Jason and I, in our last recording, had to rush off. We went over time and we both had some commitments in the afternoon that we needed to attend to, so we had to kind of pull up short. So we've actually come back together now. It's been quite a few weeks since we got back together, and some things have obviously changed in the meantime, but we'll keep going through the list, finish it off, and probably do another episode later on about some changes that I'm making to my kit anyway, just from lessons learned on this one. So following on from Jason's emergency kit, in mine I've got a little lightweight zip-up bag that I carry, and it's an orange coloured one. I think it's a QU brand, but there's plenty out there that make them. That colour, obviously, they're easy to find when you're searching through your bag or at night time. In there, I've got a lens pen, which is just a little plastic tube, basically, that's got a brush on one end and a soft chamois on the other end, just for cleaning dirt and grass seeds and dust and water off your water stains off your lenses. So whether that be your scope or your binoculars or spotting scope. I also carry a little pack towel. It's a little microfiber cloth, weighs next to nothing, and I find that quite useful if you're doing creek crossings and you just want to dry your feet off a little bit, or even before you get into bed at night, if you're a bit wet from the rain or snow, you can give yourself a bit of a pat down and dry your hair a bit, so you're not completely wet when you get into bed. Very small headlamp. This is a coin battery headlamp. I think it's a Petzl brand. It's got a string headband on it. It's incredibly light, and that's just an absolute emergency, last resort type of headlamp. Sometimes when everything else fails, or even if you find that you have to lend someone a headlamp just to get them out of somewhere, then that's a good one. Roll of paracord. Some very lightweight options for paracord. The one I've got is reflective. I think it's 2.5 mil, and it's reflective as well, so it does stand out at night time in your headlamp. Also carry a folding bucket as well, and this is just a little sil nylon bucket. Cedar Summit, I think, make this one. Very lightweight, and I've found this useful at times when you're collecting snow or ice that you're going to melt for water. You can load that up, take it back to your stove, and keep refilling your container out of that, because as you're trying to boil water, snow's predominantly, well, not predominantly, but a large percentage of snow is air. So you might fill your container with the ice or snow, but when it starts to melt down, there's actually not a lot of water in there. So once you get a bit of water going, you can throw more snow in and just keep topping it up. A permanent marker. Always carry a Sharpie and some waterproof notepad pages. So in case you, again, as a last resort, in case you need to leave a note for someone, or explain some directions to for whatever reason, this is an emergency situation, so it's something I've just carried over the years. I think that was left over from when I was a Boy Scout, to be honest. It may not be necessary in this day and age with mobile phone technology and you're in reach and that sort of thing.
Still always good to have though. You just never know what situation you're going to get yourself into, and pen and paper at the end of the day could just be something that may help out down the track. So yeah, I actually run the same. I've got a Sharpie and some waterproof paper in my one as well, which I forgot about.
Yep. I used to also document. I used to bring a little notepad in with me, and I would document things as well as I was learning them. So I didn't do that on this trip, but that again could probably go in there too. In particular, I think I've mentioned it before, I used to keep a sort of stock take of the meals that I ate, the dehydrated meals, because some of them were less than palatable. So you'd make sure you made a note so that when you came out next time and were preparing for the next trip, you knew not to buy that certain flavour, or to buy two of the ones that you really did like. Also carry a boar snake in there, and it's just a pull-through style boar snake, so it has a brass weight on the end, which you feed down your barrel and then grab that and pull it through, and it just clears out any obstructions or water or anything like that. Obviously, if you've got a serious blockage in there, if you've dropped it in some solid mud or something like that and you've got compacted stuff, it's not going to work. But it just might get you out of a situation where you've got some debris in your barrel that you need to clear out. And I've never done it myself, fortunately, but I've been on trips where other blokes I've been with have taken a dive into the creek during a creek crossing. So we've used it for that, just to pull through, get the water out of the barrel, just to... you can use the rope on it then to help you disassemble bolts. I have heard recently some bad things about boar snakes though, and my gunsmith has reported that he's actually had to clear stuck boar snakes out of 3 separate barrels. I don't know the story behind the blokes that were using them, how they got stuck, whether they were the right caliber for it or something like that, but he said it is just something to be mindful of, to make sure that if you are going to use a boar snake, that it is a quality one, and that it's the right one for the rifle caliber. I've got a selection of cable ties in there as well. These are... my father's an auto electrician, so I've got a limitless supply to them and different sizes. These, over the years, have come in very handy for making repairs to things, for fixing things into trees, for attaching things onto backpacks, for making makeshift tent poles, fixing boots even. I had a mate who had an old pair of boots, and of course on the trip the sole decided to give way. Just because he was such a tight prick that he didn't want to buy himself a new pair of boots before the trip, and was trying to make them do. So a couple of cable ties and some tape, we fixed the sole back on, and it wasn't great, but it got him through the trip and got him out again. Very little weight penalty for carrying these, and they're incredibly versatile and strong and very useful. I also carry the instructions to my inReach in a clip seal bag, because I don't use it enough to be familiar with it. It's not like my mobile phone where I'm using it every day, and it doesn't hurt to have those instructions in there, because if you did have to hit the SOS button, obviously you're going to be in a state of elevation, under stress, and your memory might not be working as well as it should, so it doesn't hurt to have those in there. I did carry some hand warmers. These are little packets of, I think they're activated charcoal in them. You rip the packet open, and then the oxygen activates the contents, and they warm up over several hours. We used them one night after we had some wet boots to try and dry the boots out a bit, and I put them in the boots. However, I think that maybe these ones that we had were expired because they didn't seem to work.
No, there wasn't much heat coming out of them, was there?
Yeah. I got onto these in America when I was over there. The outfitter we were with, they gave us a heap of them to carry in, and we were on horseback, so weight wasn't a big issue. They are a little bit heavy, so I only brought 4 of them on this trip. I'm not sure I'd bring them again, but I know in America they were very handy. We'd open a new one each morning, slip it in behind your glove and one down inside your socks just to try and warm the extremities, make sure that the blood had a bit of warmth in it that was going out to your fingertips and your toes. For in Australia, I don't know if I'd worry about carrying them again, but if you do suffer from cold hands and cold feet, they are an option for you. Waterproof matches, they speak for themselves, obviously. Cigarette lighters are great, but they don't always work, particularly if they get wet or you're at elevation. Again, the same issue that you have with your jet ball canisters, the gas suffers because of it is a pressurized container. So waterproof matches are always a fail-safe. Fire starters, I carry a little tin of Pyro putty. There's a company in Australia, Game On Outdoors, that imports it. I got onto that over in the States again. The guides over there all carry that with them. It's very safe to carry. You can take it on airplanes, and it's just an impregnated sort of fibrous material that will burn for a long time. So if you do have kindling that's slightly wet, you can put a big lump of that in, light it up, it'll burn, it'll dry out the kindling, it'll get the fire going, and then you can build from there. Right, kill kit. I carry a separate little kit with the bits and pieces in it for processing meat and skinning. So inside that I've got a bone saw. This is a Gerber folding style bone saw. Obviously a saw is very useful around camp as well if you need to remove a couple of branches, things like that for your campsite to get your tent to fit in. You can cut a little bit of firewood and so forth as well if you need to. When you do shoot a trophy animal, if you're not doing a Euro mount and you just want to bring out the skull cap, it's excellent for just cutting up that skull cap out and bringing the antlers out, and it saves a bit of weight and not having to carry out the whole skull. Scalpel knife and scalpel blades, I use a Eagle Hawk blade handle that the scalpel blades fit onto. So very similar to all of the ones that are out there. It's a Eagle Hawk knives, make a skeletonized version of it. I also have both of the skeletonized Eagle Hawk knives as well, the Skinner and the drop point knife. On this trip I carried both of them, but I'd leave the Skinner behind, I think, for now on, just to cut a little bit of weight out. I manage quite well with just the scalpel blade for doing the finer work if you were caping an animal out, and the drop point knife just for processing. And game bags. I use the Kuyu brand. I know there's a lot of brands out there. Everybody seems to have their own game bags nowadays. I just bought the Kuyu bag because I was in Kuyu at the time and grabbed them. But I have seen a few advertised quite recently, and in fact, Maroka 30, I think, have just come out with some.
Okay.
With a really interesting design feature. They've got some internal loops in it, so you can hang meat inside on a meat hook, and obviously the game bag then wraps around it, and it's not a tight fit, so it allows the air to sort of get around, but it's obviously protected. So I'm going to look at those again. And a rubbish bag, I guess you could call it, a garden waste bag, a large plastic bag that I use if I need to protect my bag from some leaking blood and so forth. Or I've used them before to sink meat into a creek to keep it cool.
Yep, nice.
So yeah, if you shoot an animal for some camp meat, throw it in the bag, seal it up and make sure the water doesn't get in, because water over the meat is not great. There is some bacteria in some water sources that could be detrimental to your meat. And I do also carry a couple of latex gloves as well, just to keep my hands clean, save having to wash them and scrub the blood and bits of meat off later on. However, I've been finding that the latex gloves normally sort of split through the process.
They don't last very long, do they?
They don't. So it kind of is almost, it's almost not worth taking them. What about your kill kit, mate?
Well, yeah, like I was saying before, I don't really have a set-alone kill kit. I do have my knives and things just in my survival kit. In regards to game bags, I just run pillowcases. I just run those. When I get back, I give them a clean out, run through the washing machine, and they're good to go. And I also just have a surgical knife and scalpel blades. So just one I got off eBay, very cheap, very affordable. I think I got 100 pack of scalpel blades and the actual scalpel handle for less than $30 just off eBay, which works well. Super sharp, just reusable, detachable blades. And yeah, that's my kind of go-to. Oh, and actually at the moment I'm using the dog and gun helium knife, which I used for the first time, and yeah, great little knife. So that's from R&N Blades, or I think they are R&N Blades, Rob Herbert there. So yeah, that's a super lightweight little knife, and that just lives in my bino harness now. So yeah, great sharp little knife.
In case you get in a knife fight, you need it.
Exactly.
Yeah, need it in front of you. Yeah. One thing I'd just add that my kill kit there I weighed was 464 grams. So I will get that weight down a little bit.
It all adds up, doesn't it?
Yeah, like there's half a kilo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll take that other knife out, and I think I also carried a spare saw blade as well, so I might not worry about that next time. Personal kit. This is toiletries and that sort of thing. I carry a tube of it's called Body Glide, and it's it's going to sound sus when I say it, but I guess it's a personal lubricant, for want of a better term. It's kind of like a moisturising cream. Cyclists and marathon runners will use this just to help prevent chafing. I've found over the years it's areas that I get chafing, obviously personal areas. Chafing a decent case of chafing can
stop you.
I don't care how tough you are. It can be terrible. So if I can prevent that, the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure. If I can prevent that, then I will. So I will squeeze a little bit out into a clip seal bag and then take that along with me. On this trip, I didn't end up using it, but it's there obviously just in case. Some Leuco tape. Now I do wrap this around the Nico pen, the Sharpie, and that's obviously for blisters and hot spots and anything else that you need a bit of tape for. Sometimes some first aid or fixing something that's got a rip in it or something. I do also carry a couple of patches, the Gear Aid patches, just to do some repair jobs in case I need to. So I've had holes burnt or in items of clothing, caught on sharp sticks and torn, and just had to do a bit of field repair. So they're good for that. Now, dental care. I don't carry a toothbrush. I use these things called Wisp. I got them off Amazon, WASP. I think Colgate make them. And they're little single-use toothbrushes. So they're a plastic handle with some bristles, and they're impregnated with toothpaste already. They come in packs of 2, so you can choose how many times you're going to brush your teeth during the trip. But it just saves carrying toothpaste in with you, and the handle I think you can sort of use as a toothpick. I carry a little floss picks with me. So again, these are little single-use things. They're a plastic handle, and they've got a short length of dental floss stretched out, and they're very handy. Excuse me, very handy if there's nothing worse than having a bit of gristle or something stuck in your teeth that's causing you pain and you can't get out. Lip balm, big lesson I've learned, particularly in the cold weather, is to carry some lip balm. I normally carry one in my bino harness and then one in my kit for in case I run out or lose it. It doesn't take much for cold wind to burn your lips, and especially being out in the sun as well all the time, so that never hurts. Migraine medication, Nurofen, Panadol. I do get migraines, not very often, but there would be nothing worse than getting a migraine out in the backcountry and not being able to do something about it, because standard painkillers don't do anything for it. So as soon as I get a migraine coming on, I need to get some medication into me, have a bit of a rest, and it can usually knock it on the head and prevent it from developing into anything too bad.
Yes, I suppose mine's, well, relatively similar. I do just run a normal toothbrush and toothpaste. I suppose the only things in addition I'd add that I include in my pack is sunscreen. I always like to have some sunscreen on me to go in hand with the lip balm, which is super important. A day on the hill, it's amazing how burnt you can become, so just to stop that. And then the only other thing is I do carry like a little container of hand sanitizer, which just lives in there as well.
Yeah. And are you one of the guys that cuts the handle off the toothbrush to save weight?
No, I'm lugging it in.
I have seen it at my dentist. They were giving away little tubes of toothpaste. There's probably a week's worth of toothpaste in there. So that could be an alternative to the wisp if you really wanted to look at saving weight in that area, or saving space. Now the hand sanitizer you were carrying, is that for the toileting, or is that just...
You're mainly toileting, for the toilet aspect.
Yeah. So in my toilet kit, I do something similar, but I carry hand wipes, Dettol hand wipes, and I also carry disposable wipes. And people, might sort of think, well, that's just extra weight. But what you can do is actually take them out a week or so beforehand and just let them dry out. Just leave them out of the packet, let them dry out. And then when you need them, you just use a bit of water and refresh them. And then you've got, it's just much nicer on your bum than toilet paper. So I do carry toilet paper as well. I try to, I've seen blokes carrying like 2 rolls of toilet paper in with them, and you think, how much do you shit? But so I will sort of ration it out a bit and work out how much I need for each day, and that with the disposable wipes, I've never run out. I've never been in the position that I need to go begging someone for toilet paper. I find that I kind of, the first couple of days in the bush, I kind of get bunged up a bit. But then after a few days of eating the dehydrated meals, there's usually no problem.
Well, I'm a 2-roll kind of guy, so I carted in, and on this trip I remember we were up in those tops, super cold, super wet, and here I was on the side of a hill hanging out with a wet roll of toilet paper thinking, oh god, this is not great. So I chewed through that 1 roll just because it got so wet on the hill, so I was lucky I had my backup roll.
Now, power, we did cover this a little bit before, about on the drive back, I think. So I carry a spare scope battery. So I've got an illuminated reticle. It's a little coin battery in the side of it. Weighs same weight as a 10-cent piece. So I will carry that. Any other spare batteries that I need, I do carry also a spare battery for the range finding binoculars. I normally will replace one before a big trip, just to make sure, and if I do that, then I won't carry a spare one. But if I have used it a few times, I'll just carry one anyway. Now, the spare battery packs for my Rhino, I did carry quite a few in on this trip. I've got 2 spare batteries and also an emergency battery pack that takes I think it's either AAA or AA batteries. I did carry all of those in with me, and this obviously increased the weight quite a bit. because I was planning on running it all of the time. I wanted to make sure it was on all the time, and also have that radio function as well. I didn't end up needing them in the end, but that was the only reason. Normally I wouldn't carry that many in. Power bank, the Dark Energy Poseidon. I was really impressed with this. That did well in the cold. I used it the whole time, and I still walked out of there with power in it. I did bring another power bank in with me that had some solar panels on it. I bought it just before the trip, and that was mainly to run the podcast gear. And I used it the once, put it in the tent afterwards, and got up the next morning, and it wasn't working. So obviously the cold affected it quite a bit. So that's on me, knowing that the cold would have affected it. That's not a criticism. I did that just to test it. And normally, you would have to put that in your sleeping bag with you. But like I said, the Dark Energy Poseidon did do well. There is an Australian importer for those. I think it might be Survival Supplies Australia who imports those. So cables, obviously your charging cables for your phone, and USB-C ones for my headlamps and that sort of thing. And on this trip, I did carry my boot dryers, which are something that I've had made up for me. My father got a couple of little computer fans and mounted them on a little plastic plate, and they sit in the top of your boot and draw air out. So these were used in conjunction with the charcoal sachets. So I put the charcoal sachet. The idea is it generates a bit of heat, and then the fans on top sort of draw the moist air out. Didn't seem to work on this trip because I think the charcoal sachet let us down. But if you're going to be constantly, suffering with wet boots, that's something. There is a company out there that makes them now, but I think you've got to get them pulled in from America, like everything. So that was just something I took into experiment with. I think you gave you a bit of a laugh anyway, if nothing else does.
It did. I suppose just on top of that, what I took in was just a 20,000 milliamp, I think it was a Cynet portable power bank, which I pretty much used just to charge my phone and also my inReach. My additional batteries that I did take were predominantly for my camera gear, so I carted a fair bit of camera gear around, so there's just spare batteries for my Sony and my GoPro, and also my Insta360 camera, which I was running on the trip, and then just a general few spare AAAs, and yeah, that was pretty much my power supply.
Yeah. Now, glassing gear is the next item we've got. So I've got a tripod. It's a Manfrotto B3. I bought it years ago. It's an aluminium one. It's very light. Unfortunately, the trade-off with the light weight to it is that it's not super duper stable. So that's just a compromise that you have to make. That weighs 1,200 grams, just over 1,200 grams. I have made a modification to that recently, and I won't go into that too much now. I'll talk about that again another time. But I've tried to cut a bit of weight out of that. That includes the pan head as well. And on this trip, I was using a Tricer LP lightweight pan head. It's got an Arca Swiss plate on the top, and on the bottom of my binos I've got a Osiak Equipment mount on there. So if you haven't seen either of those, go and have a look at them. Really good, really lightweight. The Osiak mount is Arca Swiss size, so it just slips straight into the pan head. Very lightweight, goes in and out of the bino harness, very low profile, so it doesn't catch up on anything. So well worth looking into. I've got a Leupold Gold Ring spotting scope. It's only a compact one. I think it only goes up to 27 power because I didn't bother going any higher in magnification, because obviously the higher you go, the bigger the unit and then more weight. And realistically, for the sort of hunting that I was doing, that I bought it for, of deer-sized animals, Sambar deer, elk, mule deer and so forth, red deer. You don't need a lot of magnification to look at them to see whether they're a good deer or not. And at 27 power, it gives you a good enough indicator to know whether you want to walk all the way over there or keep looking. If you were doing different sorts of hunting, for example, if you were sheep hunting or mountain goat hunting and you needed to count annuli on the horns, then obviously you'd want something a bit bigger than that. But I've found that that's more than adequate for everything I need. And that's 820 grams, that one. Spotting scope, adapter, mobile phone case, adapter for the phone scope is the brand. So it's adapter goes on the eyepiece of the spotting scope, and then the phone camera lines up with that, and you can lock it in and obviously record through your spotting scope. All of that weighs about 150 grams with the case, the adapter, and so forth. And you can leave the case on your phone the whole time. Yeah.
So I suppose, from my side of things, I'm running a slick Sprint aluminium tripod. Not sure the exact weight, but it is a relatively lightweight tripod for an aluminium version. On top of that, what I have done historically, I wasn't for this trip, I usually run a Sony Cybershot SX60 HS camera, which has a 65 optical zoom on it. So I've actually been using that historically or previously for my kind of spotting scope. On this trip, I was running a Sony RX10 version 4, which is a 4K camera with a limited, it's actually got 35 times zoom. So it's you can't use it as well as I was using the Sony as a spotting scope. However, it still does the job. So I just use my binos to pick out the animals, which I'm running Minox 8.5 by 40s, which I mentioned I think previously. And then I just get the tripod set up and use the camera plus the digital zoom version to help kind of see what the animal is, just to help scope it out and see what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I've seen a few people using their digital camera as a spotting scope alternative. Do they call it a bridge camera?
Yes, it is. It's a bridge camera.
So you've got the zoom lens, and then you've got the digital zoom on top of that. And then when you take a photo, you can even zoom in on the photo even further. So you end up with, like 120 odd power or something like that.
And they've been excellent. The only probably negative of them is in that low light, kind of like anything, even with good glass, that low light, it does become quite hard to get a clear image. However, it's my go-to, and I've got no plan to purchase a spotting scope.
Right, so sundry items, the next one. These are just things that I've learnt over the years that to carry. The spare car key is the big one. So I will, if I'm coming in with a partner, I will give them the spare car key to carry, just as a backup in case something happens to me and my partner needs to get back to the car, or my bag falls off a cliff or something or other. We're not stuck in the back of nowhere, hitchhiking out. Hunting license, my weapons license, and my driver's license. I always carry those in with me. So obviously in Victoria, you need your the game management license, and my Queensland weapons license, Queensland's firearms license, and driver's license as well. And just in case you ever get pulled up and asked for it, I never have been. I'm sure there are people out there that have come across someone that wanted to look at it. It's just handy to have it, and again, it takes up no room and no weight, so you might as well carry it. And I guess driver's license, just for whatever reason, I carry it with me rather than leave it in the car in case the car gets broken into it. Where we've parked it, or if they need to, identify my body later on, they might find my driver's license on me.
No, so for me, those are just the standard ones. I don't really run anything additional on top of that.
And then last thing, things to leave in the vehicle. So I will bring some salt in with me. I don't bother backpacking it in. Usually I find the cold weather should be enough. If you shoot a trophy animal and you're going to be caping it and carrying it out for a mount, then the cold weather is usually enough to be able to keep the cape. You walk out straight away with it. But I have heard blokes carrying, like a Coke bottle full of salt in with them, just to try and preserve the cape. Some clean water at the back of the car, and again, due to the cold weather, don't leave this out in the open. Make sure it's covered so that it doesn't freeze, because it's useless to you when you get back to the car if you've got a bottle full of frozen water. Spare gas canister, and just a couple of other things. If I've got spare boots, I'll carry them. I'll bring them in with me and leave them in the car just in case you have an issue with your boots. You can quickly walk out, change your boots over, and go back in and keep hunting. A shower, a spare meal, some clean, dry clothes, towel, and a stretcher. And in case you get back to the car late at night, don't feel like throwing up your tent, you can just throw the stretcher out and get a bit of a rest before the sun comes up.
The only thing I'd add in addition to that, which has gotten me out of trouble previously, is just one of those 12-volt jump starter kits. Super small. It lives in my ute, and I've done it before. I've left the lights on the vehicle. I've walked away, hunted for the day, and have come back to a flat battery. So those things, for the price you pay, they're a great little get you out of trouble kind of piece of kit. Hook that on, and they jump a petrol or diesel vehicle, no dramas at all.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice, because I did notice the car when we started it after we got back, it turned over a few times. Normally it's really good, it'll kick over straight away, but on that occasion, I'd say obviously the cold weather, being out there for those days, cold weather took its toll on the battery, and last thing you need. But having, and this is one reason that I'll never buy an automatic 4-wheel drive. The backup is we could have always push started and jump started it, and
they just kick them over so easily for how small the units are. For a diesel engine, it's amazing how they work. So it's definitely just a great piece of kit to have in the ute.
Yep. So my next job is going to be going through my gear and trying to trim it down quite a bit. I want to try and shave. I'm probably realistically going to try and aim for close to 10 kilos.
Ooh, you've got a lot of things to cut out then.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know a few areas I'm going to start with already. So I reckon I can get 5 kilos pretty much straight away. And again, I'll just have to do a bit of testing, and I've done quite a bit of research after this trip, and I'm going to get a couple other bits of gear. I'm going to sort out something about that stove. I'm not super happy with that, so I'm going to look at some alternatives. There may be a bit of a weight sacrifice for that, so if that's what it is, and that's what it is. But
you might end up heavier on your next trip.
No, I will not. I'll only bring one rifle. You can carry it next time. So we've also looked at, we've done a bit of research as well, looked at Google Maps and that sort of thing, spoken to some people, got some suggestions, and got a couple of places in mind for the next trip. We've also spoken about maybe incorporating mountain bikes as well, getting in behind the gates on the roads a little bit further. So there'll definitely be a round two, and
I'm itching to get back down there. Actually, it's it was a great trip, and I'm keen to explore a bit more country down there.
Yeah, it's August now when we're recording this part of it, and this would be a great time to be down there, August, September. Unfortunately, it hasn't quite worked out for us with other commitments, but there's always next year. And the deer are going to keep growing, so as long as the government heli colours stay out of there, we'll be right. All right. Well, other than that, I can't think of anything too much else to talk about. Hope you've enjoyed our lessons and our breakdown of all of our gear. We will be making some changes to some of it, but there is quite a bit there that we're both impressed with and we'll be sticking with. So we'll keep you updated. And again, if anybody has any recommendations or you know of any other companies that might be worth trying or reaching out to and talking about gear, please let me know. Usual through the Instagram or through email. Jason, again, thanks for doing all this with me. I know that your time is precious at the moment between work and building a new house and managing everything else that's going on in your life. So I really appreciated your company on the trip and your assistance in getting these recordings done.
No, definitely. I love this stuff. So like Tobias said, if you do have any questions or suggestions, also feel free to reach out to me on LiquidAntler. But I love it. I love talking about it, and I'm looking forward to our next trip.
Yep, awesome. Hey, thank you for listening in. If you'd like to contact me for a chat, pass on any feedback, or have some ideas for future podcasts, please reach out to me on Instagram at australian_hunting_backcountry or email australian.hunting.backcountry@outlook.com.au. For now though, please look after yourselves and your mates.